Watching the feed, Xiao Likuan, whose ability boosted comprehension, worked it out fast. That has to be a gold element skill. In that state, the bald guy might not even be able to crack her defense. Then, catching the force behind it, he corrected himself. No, it's not just her defense. Her strength's ridiculous too. On screen, the girl's punch cut through the air with a fierce whoosh, a wave of raw metallic force radiating out even through the display. Wang Chang blurted out a curse and marveled, "You really can't judge girls by looks anymore. She looks soft and delicate and she's hitting like a truck." Xiao Likuan kept building on the thought. A gold element skill this offensive and defensive at once has to be at least B rank. Then he reconsidered. Or, not necessarily. What if her comprehension's just really high, like Lu Shen's? High enough comprehension and even a B-tier ability could unlock a B-tier skill. Wang Chang sucked in a breath. Then if her comprehension's that good, she might have more than just the one skill. While they were still talking it through, the bald man on screen dodged her punch entirely, faster than she was. His hand snapped up, caught her wrist mid-swing, and in one fluid motion he twisted it and threw her clean over his shoulder. Her back slammed into the ground. Xiao Likuan and Wang Chang both froze. What kind of world was this? Girls getting violent, sure, but guys with zero mercy either? Even as spectators, the two of them winced just imagining that impact. Her gold element defense had probably kept the damage manageable, but her expression twisted between pain and pure disbelief, staring up at him like she'd just seen a ghost. That expression froze completely a second later. The bald man, having just finished the throw, didn't hesitate. A single stroke of a black dagger opened her throat. The cut ran deep, blood spilling out fast. Wind flashed across the screen. Then it went dark. Xiao Likuan and Wang Chang stared at it, stunned, before finally reacting. That's it? Her gold element defense should have held up better than that. How'd he break through it? Or was it just a clean hit to the throat, one shot? No, it's the dagger. Has to be something like Brother Chang's wristband. Some kind of powerful item. Damn, so this bald guy's actually strong. Could he be Zhang Jintian or Ke Zhenfei in disguise? Some other hidden powerhouse? Wait, check the ranking board. New name just posted. Sure enough, a fresh entry had appeared, 9th place, Lu Shen, level 1. Lu Shen, from class 1? Could that actually be him? Guy's an athlete, barely says a word in the chat. Damn it, feels like all the real players are quietly getting rich in the shadows while the rest of us are just making noise in the chat for attention. I've decided, I'm keeping my head down from now on. No more wasting time in that group. Inside the virtual arena, Li Ran's face had gone rigid, her eyes snapping toward me with a sharp turn of her head, bangs sweeping through the air along with the fury radiating off her. How could she not be furious, and I still had the audacity to keep up my honest, goofy smile as I thanked her cheerfully. Thanks, little miss. That was a generous 400 you gifted me. You're such a kind person, kind people always get good karma. That same innocent, sincere tone. The same familiar words. She nearly coughed up blood from sheer rage. No point keeping the innocent act going now. Her glare burned into me, equal parts resentment and wariness. After a long silence, she spoke, cold. Unless I'm wrong, you don't actually have a son my age. You're not some bald uncle at all. That face is a disguise. What do you actually look like, man, woman, how old are you? I chuckled. What, looking for revenge? That bald teammate of yours was wearing a disguise mask too, wasn't she? I was curious at first, honestly, why me, out of everyone in that lobby? Figured it was just because we were both bald. Then I realized, it really was just because we were both bald. She must have clocked that whatever I pulled from my treasure chest was a disguise mask, a support item, barely any real stat boost, which would make me weaker than the average 20th floor resident. That's why she came for me, isn't it? Her face stayed cold, silent for a long stretch. Finally she muttered, is this seriously your first time in the duel room? I grinned. Of course. And not just that, I really did take out a 500 loan. Believe it or not, I'm actually 35,000 in debt to the apartment right now. I might not even survive the day. I'm seriously broke, little miss. Why not show a little more of that generosity and help me out? Help my sister, more like. At this point even words like little miss and kindness landed as pure mockery. She gritted her teeth and guessed outright, unless I'm wrong, you're a grown man, someone who's been working a job for years. I had no intention of confirming anything about who I actually was. I just kept the same honest smile going. If little miss won't be generous, I'll just have to earn it myself. She was still grinding her teeth when she suddenly called out, wait. I can share some fast money strategies with you. I turned back toward her. I was standing by then, while she stayed seated, one standing, one sitting, a natural little imbalance of dominance built into the posture itself. I smiled down at her. TSK. That sounds awfully familiar. Wouldn't you agree, scammer? Her face flushed red, furious, and humiliated in equal measure. I already paid the price for what I tried to pull. Why would I try to scam you now? So? I raised an eyebrow. What do you actually want, then? I want to see your real face. Without the disguise. I didn't give her the chance to argue further. I just turned and walked off, leaving her fuming, looking ready to stab someone. Not long after, Jiang Ye dropped her own bald disguise and returned to her real face. How'd it go, Sister Ran? Got the 400, right? Her excitement faded fast, replaced by hesitation as she caught the look on Li Ran's face. Wait, no way. Sister Ran, don't tell me, did you mess it up? Or did you go soft? Li Ran ground her teeth. Neither. I didn't mess up, and I definitely didn't go soft. We both just got played by that bald guy. He turned it right back around and scammed me instead. Jiang Ye's eyes went wide. No way, he's stronger than you? Li Ran pressed her lips together, too embarrassed to admit she'd been nearly one-shot killed, and just nodded. His stats completely crushed mine. And besides the disguise mask, he had a bronze tier item too. Holy, Jiang Ye was floored. How was she this unlucky, trying to scam some random guy and running straight into a hidden powerhouse in disguise? What kind of reverse jackpot was this? Uneasy now, she asked, so what now? Is he gonna hold a grudge and come after us? Li Ran didn't answer. She was still seething over the 400 she'd lost. If anyone had a grudge to settle here, it should be her, not him. But she kept that thought to herself. After a long moment, she said, Solemn, I don't want to play challenge mode anymore. Jiang Ye, startled, tried to talk her out of it. Come on, Sister Ran, it was one mistake. You can't quit over one setback. This is the fastest, most stable way to make money. Otherwise it's just random matchmaking or random challenge, and you could lose everything in a single fight. But Li Ran shook her head firmly. I've already thought it through. That fight made something clear to me, my combat sense is garbage. I didn't even use my full strength against him. I'm going to use random matchmaking to fight people at my own level and actually build up my combat sense before I worry about making money again. Besides, my loan limit's high enough. I can cover rent just fine. Jiang Ye stared at her, stunned. Wait, you're actually serious? Li Ran didn't answer that either. She just acted on it, pulling up her mental panel and selecting random matchmaking. I'd found a quiet seat by then and decided to try the same mode myself. My instinct told me something worth testing. In random matchmaking, both sides were paired by similar combat power. But combat power wasn't the same thing as actual strength. Whether or not I was holding the poison blade blood dagger, my displayed combat power never changed. Which meant equipment and items didn't factor into that number at all. Random matchmaking wasn't nearly as fair as it looked. Anyone with strong gear still carried a real edge. Beyond gear, combat sense mattered just as much. Two players sitting at the same 20 combat power could be worlds apart, one fumbling through their first real fight, barely able to use a fraction of their strength, the other trained. Maybe even someone with military or violent experience before all this, able to use every ounce of it. That gap explained perfectly why the top 5 names on the War God ranking held perfect win rates, either broken gear, insane pre-apocalypse combat skill, or both. In this new world, background and connections meant nothing. Only who could actually fight. And the people who already knew how to fight had better odds of surviving long enough to find powerful gear too, a feedback loop that only widened the gap at the top. Fortunately, I had an edge of my own in random matchmaking. I'd initially assumed absolute focus and combat stance were weaker than direct damage elemental skills. That fight against the schoolgirl had proven otherwise, both temporarily spiked my stats mid-combat, and I just watched firsthand what raw, overwhelming stats could do. She'd probably been carrying multiple gold element skills of her own, likely a bronze tier item too, and none of it had mattered. She hadn't even had time to use any of it before I ended the fight. With absolute focus and combat stance both active, my stats had simply overwhelmed hers completely. Against a big enough stat gap, tricks and gimmicks meant nothing. And combat stance sharpened my combat sense a little more with every fight, meaning I'd only keep getting stronger the more I fought. Becoming a real powerhouse was just a matter of time. At this rate, grinding evenly matched opponents through random matchmaking was probably the fastest path forward, especially with the disguise mask and the poison blade blood dagger both in hand, and my combat sense climbing with every match. I felt good about my odds. Time to try it. I opened my panel and selected random matchmaking. This mode capped the betting range. Bet 800, and the system paired you against someone within a 100 to 900 range of combat power, with the final wager always set at whichever side bet lower. Bet 200 against someone else's 800, and the match ran for 200. That gave a rough read on an opponent before the fight even started. Bigger bets usually meant more confidence, and the 100 to 900 crowd tended to run weaker than anyone betting in the 1000 to 9000 range. Not an absolute rule, but a useful one. I bet 800, all the money I actually had, and assumed the final wager would land lower once matched. Instead, it came back at exactly 800. Which meant my opponent had bet either 800 or 900, deliberately avoiding the jump to the next tier at 1000. That suggested skill. I went in more cautious than I'd planned. My consciousness shifted, and the familiar arena space rebuilt itself around me. Standing across from me this time a delivery rider in a bright yellow uniform. The moment he spotted me, he said something short and sharp that made my stomach drop a little. That tone didn't belong to a newbie. He'd clearly fought before. I didn't answer. The countdown had already started in my head. The instant it hit 0, the yellow uniformed rider vanished from the arena entirely. Wang Chang, watching, blurted, "What the hell, where'd he go?" Xiao Likuan, leaning on his comprehension enhancement, worked it out fast. Spatial skill. He's got a spatial ability, like Bai Ruoan, except his is offensive. Way more dangerous than hers. He was still talking when the yellow figure reappeared, having crossed the entire basketball court arena in an instant, materializing right behind me with a massive battle axe already swinging for my skull. Xiao Likuan let out a small breath of relief. Good thing he doesn't have a spatial blade, the ignore all defense version. Otherwise the bald guy would already be dead. Strong spatial ability or not, that battle axe doesn't fit his kit at all. As if to prove the point, I tilted my head just slightly and let the axe sail past. That's when it started to feel off to Xiao Likuan. He and Wang Chang had watched enough matches by now, several of Yang Wenchao's, 2 of mine, to notice a pattern. Almost every player who stepped into the arena carried some kind of item or gear. He'd first assumed everyone was buying their equipment from the high-end mall. Now he wasn't so sure, because this delivery rider's whole skill set was built around speed and light weapons, and he was swinging a giant battle axe. Either he genuinely didn't understand basic combat logic, or Xiao Likuan's thoughts caught on something. Some students had already found black iron chests in their own apartments, but only a handful. What if every apartment on the 20th floor and above guaranteed a chest, maybe even a bronze one, and most players just hadn't realized it yet, or had found theirs and kept quiet? He'd assumed players on the higher floors probably wouldn't survive the day. Now, watching all this unfold, he felt a small twist of envy instead. And with that came another thought: I'd started on the 20th floor too. Did my apartment have a chest of its own? Had I not found it, or found it and said nothing? Turning that over, Xiao Likuan found himself reconsidering Ding Dang's death. Maybe it hadn't been so unfair after all. I'd started on the 20th floor, had a C-tier ability, had opened packages, had found a treasure chest, had even leveled up to 1. My strength already sat near the top across both classes. Yu had said my loan limit was only 50,000. Surviving the day was still going to be brutal for me regardless. If I didn't make it through the night, what would happen to whatever I'd pulled from that chest? While his thoughts drifted, the fight on screen had stalled into a standoff. My stats clearly outmatched the writer's. I kept dodging that heavy axe, but his teleportation made it impossible for me to land a hit in return. Neither of us could touch the other. That standoff wasn't going to last, though. Combat burned through stamina and energy on both sides, and neither of our tricks could run forever. Inside the arena, my patience was wearing thin. Both absolute focus and combat stance carried time limits and long cooldowns. In most fights, I'd only get to use each once. If I didn't end this soon, once those buffs faded, my stats would crash back down hard, and my combat sense along with them. I could actually lose to this guy if I let it drag on. He was feeling the same pressure. Teleporting drained his energy fast, and swinging that heavy axe around was burning through his stamina just as quickly. If he couldn't close it out soon, it wouldn't go well for him either. Watching the tension build on both sides, Xiao Likuan realized, for the first time, he had no idea who was going to win. Then I made a mistake. When the rider swung the axe at me again, my dodge came noticeably slower than before. The blade caught my left shoulder, the heavy edge lodging straight into bone. The rider's face lit up with triumph. He moved in for the finishing blow. But despite the blood loss, despite the pain, my movements suddenly turned faster than they'd been all fight, more agile than before, not slower. I ignored the pain in my shoulder completely, twisting my body hard enough to tear the wound even wider, just to turn faster than he expected. The dagger swept toward his throat. That's when Xiao Likuan understood exactly what was happening. I deliberately traded a serious wound for one clean shot at a killing blow. If he dodged, I'd lose outright, badly hurt as I was. If he didn't react in time, my superior stats would finish him instantly. An all-in gamble, pain for victory. Xiao Likuan held his breath, not daring to blink. The delivery rider had no real combat instincts to fall back on. The thrill of landing his axe strike was still frozen on his face when his eyes went wide with shock, and then the blade opened his throat, and the light in his eyes slowly faded. My stats were simply too far ahead of his. One strike nearly took his head clean off. Thankfully, the screen didn't linger on it long. Wind flashed up. Wang Chang sat stunned for a long moment before finally murmuring, "This bald guy. Is he actually one of our own classmates? He fights like someone with real training. Anybody in our 80 from Class 1 or Class 2 with serious combat experience?" Xiao Likuan thought it over. Lu Shan, maybe? He does taekwondo. Wang Chang sighed, envious. Damn, I always wanted to learn taekwondo or karate as a kid. Family wasn't well off though, and my parents wanted me focused on studying instead. What a joke, who cares about studying anymore? Fighting's the real deal now. Xiao Likuan glanced at him and thought, privately, bro, you weren't exactly a star student either. Back in the second-floor lobby of the virtual space, I sat down and instinctively pressed a hand over my left shoulder. Even though the fight had been virtual, the pain from that axe wound had felt disturbingly real. If combat stance hadn't kept me locked into total focus, the pain alone might have slowed me down enough to let him dodge that final strike. That had been far too close. I was starting to genuinely appreciate just how much combat awareness actually mattered. Now, sitting on 1,600 currency, I wasn't sure what to do next: keep grinding the 100 to 900 range to build combat sense further, or jump straight into the 1000 to 9000 tier for bigger stakes. Before I could decide, a new system announcement rang out in my mind. Player Jiang Ye has posted a dual room announcement. Hello, everyone. I'm Jiang Ye, lead actress of The Tyrant Master's 3 Lifetimes of Sinful Love. In 5 minutes, I'll be fighting a random matchmaking match. If you'd like to watch, search room 151 in 5 minutes. Thank you all for your support, I really appreciate it. Aside from the opening system line, the rest had played in her own actual voice. I sat with that for a second, stunned. Players could post announcements? Around me, other players lit up with excitement. Wait, that's really Jiang Ye? I'm a huge fan, I've only ever seen her on TV, never thought I'd get to watch her in person. She's obviously using her celebrity status to pull a crowd. 100 spectators is already an extra 1,000 in her pocket. 100? With her fame, that's way too low, I'd bet at least 1,000. Even that feels low, she made an announcement, so even non-fans will check it out. Wouldn't shock me if it hit 10,000 viewers. 10,000's a stretch, we're still in the beginner phase, not many people would spend 100 just to watch. Wait, am I the only one wondering how she's even allowed to post an announcement in the first place? Simple, winning streaks in random matchmaking give small perks. This is probably her streak reward. Wait, so that means she's actually strong? Obviously, why else would she invite an audience? If she loses, she only keeps 10% of the spectator money, the rest goes to her opponent. Inviting people to watch while risking that is either supreme confidence or she's just handing her opponent free cash. Man, now I kind of want to be the one fighting her. Good luck, if she's bold enough to do this, she's insanely strong, probably carrying serious gear too. Might even be a future war god ranking name. No wonder she's my goddess. Big in the industry before all this, and now dominating the Doomsday Apartment too. Come on, the industry and clean reputation don't exactly go hand in hand. While everyone else buzzed about Jiang Ye, I filed away the useful part of it. Random matchmaking win streaks gave rewards. Was that how Yang Wenchao had hit level 2 so fast? Would 3 wins in a row net me something too? With that in mind, I decided to stay in the 100 to 900 range and grind out 2 more wins first, hoping to land a streak reward of my own. I placed a 900 bet and jumped into a fresh random matchmaking match. I wasn't especially interested in Jiang Ye's fight myself. Plenty of others in the lobby clearly were, though. Even Li Ran, fresh off her own random matchmaking match, felt a flicker of envy hearing the announcement. Being a celebrity really does pay off, she muttered. Making millions a day before Doomsday, and now she's still raking it in after the world ended. Su Jingyao was just as bitter. Ugh, I hope she gets matched against a pro and loses. Then all that spectator money from her big announcement goes straight to whoever beats her. Li Ran glanced around at the crowd. Bet a lot of people are thinking exactly that. Some of them are probably praying they get matched with her in 5 minutes just for the payout. Su Jingyao's eyes lit up. Ranjia, what if you got matched against her and actually won? We'd be set. This kind of jackpot beats scamming people any day. But Li Ran shook her head. At my current level, I still struggle against players my own strength. Against her? No chance. If she can post an announcement, that means she's already won at least 3 straight, and if she's confident enough to invite spectators, that's real confidence in her own strength. Even matched at the same combat power, I wouldn't beat her. Su Jingyao sighed, disappointed. Damn. Yeah, you're probably right. My second random matchmaking match ended in an easy win. Unfortunately, my opponent had only bet 100, so that's all I earned back. Still, not a total loss. Combat stance kept sharpening with every fight, and the more I fought, the more convinced I became that hard work pays off might genuinely be one of the strongest S-tier abilities out there. The growth curve was obvious, undeniable. Barring anything unexpected, I planned to fuse this key replica back into my main body at midnight, folding all that growth straight into my core. With that decided, I made a small adjustment and dove straight into another random matchmaking match. Back in apartment 2064, I'd half expected the hair collecting job to run into complications sooner or later. Instead, the whole thing went smoothly. I searched every room in the apartment and came away with exactly 10,086 strands, all intact. But something about them was strange. Human hair should vary in length, thicker at the root than the tip. Every single strand I'd gathered was perfectly uniform, same thickness throughout, and every one of them exactly the same length. I was about to work up the nerve to ask the little assistant robot what came next, when a strange noise rose from the living room. I turned and saw the massive TV had switched itself on, and a woman in a white dress, long black hair hanging loose, was crawling out of it. A classic, overused horror movie image. And yet I found myself frozen, staring at the screen anyway. The scene kept looping. She'd crawl out of the TV, only for the world beyond it to reveal itself as just another television screen, and she'd crawl out of that one too, again and again, an endless nesting of screens. I lost count of how many she'd broken through. Just as the repetition was starting to numb me, a cold shock ran down my spine. Something about this iteration felt different. The actual, physical TV in the living room really was broken now. And this woman in white, she had genuinely crawled out of it. For real. I froze completely, like I'd been hit with some kind of paralysis spell. She stayed bent at that unnatural 120-degree angle, hair hanging over her face, and at that angle she shouldn't have been able to see anything at all. She took a few practice steps forward anyway, then stretched out claw-like fingers and began clawing at empty air. At what? I had no idea, but it looked, from where I stood, like she was trying to tear straight through the fabric of whatever TV world all this belonged to. I held my breath, not daring to make a sound, hoping she'd simply vanish once she tired of clawing. Instead, after a long stretch of it, she stopped abruptly. Slowly, she straightened out of that eerie bend, her long black hair flipping back over her shoulders to reveal a face covered in a white mask, with a single visible eye, a sharp phoenix-shaped eye, its outer corner extending elegantly. She scanned the apartment and spoke, sharp and eerie. I still didn't dare move. It was only when the little assistant robot addressed her by some title that I registered she was, apparently, the actual tenant. She ignored the robot entirely and turned her gaze straight to me. "Are you the cleaning service I requested?" I nodded stiffly. "Yes." "How's the hair coming along?" I wasn't sure how to answer, but thankfully the robot spoke up for me. "All the hair has been collected and is currently soaking." She glanced at the glass tank filled with hair, seemed to confirm the count with a single look, and said, "Not bad." Then she continued, "Next, apply hair care oil, then dry it." I let out a small breath of relief. Then she tilted her head up toward the ceiling and added, "The sun's out today, weather looks good. Take it to the rooftop to dry." The rooftop. Sunlight. A sense of dread crept over me instantly. I hesitated, then asked carefully, "Excuse me, where exactly is the rooftop?" "The apartment's rooftop, obviously." "You don't know," she said, like it should have been self-evident. My stomach dropped. I tried to negotiate. "According to the apartment's rules, I can only ride the elevator up to the 20th floor. I don't think I'm qualified to reach the rooftop." She answered just as plainly. "That's fine. You don't need the elevator, I have a way to send you there directly." Why did it have to be the rooftop? What was even up there? And more importantly, I'd already opened stolen packages once. Which meant leaving my own apartment at all put me at risk of getting hunted by something at any moment. But risk and opportunity tend to travel together. No other player had access to a rooftop. If I got there first, there was a real chance I'd find something worth the danger. If I didn't have my replica ability as a safety net, I'd never have entertained this. But she wasn't giving me much room to refuse anyway. I thought it over and asked, cautious, "Before heading up, can I go back and make some preparations first?" Her masked face gave nothing away, but the aura around her stayed cold and commanding. I expected a refusal. Instead, after a brief pause, she agreed. "I'll give you 10 minutes. Go over that, and I'll leave you a bad review. And if you don't come back at all, this whole job's for nothing, no pay, plus a penalty fee on top." I nodded. "I'll be back within 10." With that settled, Replica 1 left apartment 2064. Worried that even the short walk back might attract a hunter, I pulled a bronze treasure chest out of my spatial ring the moment I stepped into the hallway and opened it on the spot, right there. The lucky lantern was still active. Maybe I'd get another jackpot. Instead, all that sat inside was a blank sheet of white paper. No markings, no text, just a smooth, faintly oily sheen to it. I wasn't discouraged. I pulled out little Bing and had him run detection on it. Skill scroll, bronze tier. Effect: tearing this scroll open has a high chance of granting a skill that does not exceed the user's ability rank. Small chance of yielding nothing. A skill learning scroll. This was genuinely excellent. Equipment and items were only ever external tools, attributes, abilities, and skills were the things that actually belonged to a person. Sure, raw stats boosted combat power, and combat power didn't matter much in matchmaking mode specifically, but survival in this place was never really about duels. True strength was what would actually keep me alive. I was satisfied with the find, and briefly considered using it right away, while the lantern was still active. Then I reconsidered. The higher a person's ability rank, the better the scroll's output. Since whatever skill it granted couldn't exceed the user's own ability rank, using it on a C-tier replica was a waste next to using it on my X-tier main body. Maybe I'd even pull an SSS tier skill out of it. Actually, probably wishful thinking. The item's description didn't state an explicit cap, but the bold bronze tier label was hard to ignore. If a bronze scroll could hand out something as high as SSS, what would that leave for whatever silver or gold tier scrolls existed above it? Realistically, whatever this granted probably wasn't going to be especially high level. I headed back toward apartment 2025, scroll in hand, checking the chat along the way, and that's when I noticed it had exploded again. This time it had nothing to do with the mysterious bald man or Yang Wenchao's leveling expedition. It was the ranking board. Someone had posted in a panic, 2 names had parachuted straight into first and second place, pushing Yang Wenchao down to third. 2 level 3 players, apparently out of nowhere. Someone else confirmed it, baffled. How had 2 people hit level 3 without any of the fanfare that came with the earlier level ups? Didn't level 1 and level 2 both trigger a system announcement? Could those be hidden somehow? Someone else pointed out something even stranger. Didn't anyone recognize those names? Was there actually a Huang Qi or Su Shangming in either of our classes? Nobody could place them. Then someone made the real discovery, the member list. It used to read 80. Now it read 82. I stared at that, stunned. I checked it myself, and sure enough, 82. The chat spiraled fast. Did that mean these 2 level 3 players had simply materialized in our apartment from nowhere? Could they be students from other classes in our school? Someone shot that down. Even if they were, how would they suddenly end up in our specific apartment? Could they be the veteran players everyone had been warned about? But the very first announcement had said veterans wouldn't show up until day 8. Why would the rules bend early? Someone raised an even bigger question. If the whole world had supposedly been thrown into this game at the same moment, why would veteran players even exist in the first place? Maybe they were an earlier wave, someone guessed. Maybe there'd been some kind of staggered rollout, or even a closed beta, and that's what veterans actually meant. Someone floated a wilder theory. What if there were other human worlds entirely, and these veterans came from one of those, arriving here before us? Someone wondered if Yang Wenchao gave off veteran energy himself, whether he might already know something. Someone else pushed back. Strength alone didn't prove that. Maybe he was just naturally gifted at adapting to a place like this. Since Huang Qi and Su Shangming were technically on the member list now, shouldn't they be able to see the chat too? People started tagging them directly, over and over. Neither of them ever responded. And that silence only deepened the unease. There's an old saying, those not of our kind carry different hearts. We were all human, no history of conflict between us. But on one side sat 80-some familiar classmates, and on the other, 2 total strangers who'd simply appeared. Fear and hostility were the instinctive response. I felt that same unease myself. Fortunately, the rest of my walk back to apartment 2025 passed without incident. Replica 2, meanwhile, had run into real trouble. In its third random match, the opponent was a young man wrapped head to toe in a black robe and mask, so thoroughly covered that even his gender wasn't clear at first. I only confirmed it was a man once the fight started, because the moment it began, he engaged in a slow, lazy exchange, showing no urgency to end things, and even struck up conversation mid-fight. "This must be one of your 3-win or 5-win streak attempts, huh?" That tightened something in my chest immediately. He'd seen through my situation instantly. But I couldn't afford carelessness mid-fight, so I said nothing, and held off on absolute focus and combat stance both. He wasn't going all out either, still fighting easy, casually explaining as we traded blows. "There's a hidden mechanic in this duel room called win streak blockers. Basically, when a player's about to hit a 3-win or 5-win streak and earn a reward for it, they get matched against someone like me, a high-level player specifically assigned to shut that streak down. You could also just call me a veteran player, if you like. I'll tell you straight, fight me normally, and you have no chance of winning this." My stomach dropped. What kind of rigged casino setup was this, dangling win streak rewards in front of people specifically to stop them from ever claiming them? What was even the point of offering the reward at all, just for show? It didn't make the reward fake, exactly, it just made actually earning it far harder than it looked. Anyone who managed a real streak under these conditions had to be genuinely exceptional. I'd assumed 3 wins would come easy with my strength. Clearly that assumption had been wrong. My internal pressure spiked, though I kept my expression steady on the surface. After a few more exchanges, testing the waters, I finally spoke, voice level. "You didn't tell me all this just because you're bored and wanted to chat, did you?" He let out a faint chuckle, almost approving. "You're one of the more impressive newcomers I've run into, skill and mentality both." Strength and mentality both good? I wasn't sure about the strength part. The mentality, at least, made sense. I had replicas as a safety net, each one basically its own insurance policy, and since nobody actually died in the duel room, there was no real reason to panic over a streak. That thought steadied me further, and I asked calmly, "You said normally I'd be guaranteed to lose. So is there an abnormal circumstance too?" "More than 80% of players who land a win streak in this duel room do it through non-standard means," he said. "That includes plenty of players weaker than you, even some of the names you see on the War God ranking." My heart skipped. So almost nobody was winning on pure skill? Not even the top-ranked players? Whoever did manage it honestly had to be the real elite among all the newcomers. Then his tone sharpened. "That said, not everyone qualifies for those non-standard methods. Let me ask you something. On any floor above the 20th, have you run into a mysterious black shadow?" My eyes flickered the instant he said it, and that alone seemed to give him his answer. His tone softened into something almost approving. "Thought so. You're lucky." If running into that shadow counted as luck, it was probably the Lucky Lantern's doing, something I hadn't fully clocked until just then. That eerie shadow had handed me something, after all. He continued. "Since you've met the shadow, that means you should already have a survival jade token, right?" I nodded. "The one that automatically stores survival points whenever someone gets killed?" He smirked. "That's the one." Then he explained further, and it clicked into place for me. That abnormal method he'd mentioned earlier was match fixing, plain and simple. He was offering to throw the fight, hand me my crucial 3rd win, in exchange for compensation. Win streaks, apparently, were just another commodity. Realizing that, I actually felt relieved. Back when the shadow first offered me the token, I'd nearly turned it down, dismissing a single survival point as only worth 100,000. Looking back now, I was glad I hadn't. Still, something nagged at me. Would that shadow really hand out something valuable for free, only for me to immediately trade it away for a win streak? There had to be a catch somewhere. Having already learned my lesson the hard way with the packages and their hidden hunters, I asked directly. "That black shadow, what is it, exactly? If I hand over the survival jade token, is it going to come after me for revenge?" "Hand over the token?" He laughed lightly. No, no. I don't want the token itself. I caught my mistake immediately. He didn't want the token. He wanted whatever survival points were stored inside it. Which made one thing clear beyond doubt. Survival points were extraordinarily valuable. The very first announcement, back on arrival, had already warned us how precious they were. The Shadow had handed me the token specifically to farm points off me. And now this seasoned player, willing to throw an entire fight, wanted the exact same thing. I couldn't help but ask, just how valuable are survival points, really? They say you can trade them for practically anything you want, he said. And we're already boosting our strength through treasure chests and packages alone as newcomers. Imagine what someone could become if they were spending actual survival points on gear instead. Seemingly intrigued by my questions, he explained further, patient about it. You've got it backwards. The real purpose of survival points isn't trading them for powerful items. Their true purpose is survival, plain and literal. Without them, you die, and I don't mean that as a metaphor. Right now you're in a beginner apartment for a reason. Its survival conditions are deliberately easy, practically a tutorial. But once you clear this and step into the actual Doomsday Apartment, you'll understand what Doomsday really means. First, rent there gets paid in survival points. Can't pay, you die. Second, every player loses 1 survival point automatically at midnight, every single day. Holidays or special event announcements can deduct even more. And if your total ever drops negative. He didn't need to finish that sentence. So in short, survival points are your life. No points, no life. As for spending them on powerful gear, that's a luxury reserved for the top veteran players. Newcomers shouldn't even think about it. That finally explained something for me, why a single survival point was worth exactly enough to create 1 replica. That was simply what a survival point was worth. But it raised a new worry immediately. If every player lost 1 point automatically at midnight, did that apply only to my main body, or to every replica separately? If it hit every replica individually, I'd be forced to fuse away anything I didn't strictly need just to avoid bleeding points for nothing. That was a problem for later, though. For now, all I needed to understand was how valuable survival points really were. After turning it over, I asked directly, so how much are you actually charging for a 3-win streak? He chuckled again, a laugh with an eerie edge to it, and then, almost formally, laid it out. As I mentioned, selling win streaks is common enough in the duel room that it's grown into a full business model. He gestured to the black mask covering his face. This mask is our organization symbol. See the slanted V-shaped mark in the upper right corner? I'm telling you all this so you understand, our organization is large, structured, and offers different packages for different customers. A standalone 3-win streak has one price. A 5-win package, which includes the 3-win, costs differently. And a 10-win bundle, covering both 3 and 5, is a different deal entirely. Pay in survival points, and our service is flawless. Everything's locked in with contract-based tools, so neither side can break the deal afterward. I'd assumed I was just playing a normal third match in random matchmaking. Turned out my opponent wasn't an enemy at all, he was a salesman. I'd figured the win streak blocker mechanic was some system-generated obstacle. More likely, it was an entire organization of veteran players deliberately blocking newcomer streaks, then turning around and selling those same streaks back to the people they just blocked. On the surface, they sold win streaks. In reality, they were the exact same people manufacturing the scarcity in the first place. Stealing what people had earned and reselling it to them, pure, distilled capitalism. By that point, I'd fully ruled out buying anything from him. Still, curious, I asked, can you break down the actual pricing, 3-win, 5-win, and the bundles? He answered plainly. Simple. 3-win streak costs 3 survival points. 5-win costs 5. But buying the 3 plus 5 bundle together only costs 4. That threw me. How was buying 2 streaks together cheaper than buying them separately? He caught my confusion and explained. Here's how it works, buy the 3-win streak, and we guarantee those 3 wins outright. But for the 5-win streak, you have to win your fourth match on your own before we step in to secure your fifth. Lose that fourth match, and that's on you. We're no longer obligated to deliver the 5-win streak at all. In other words, the bundle's cheaper because you're absorbing part of the risk yourself. That made sense. Some buyers paid for 2 wins and only ever got 1, having lost the fourth match entirely on their own. However you looked at it, the bundle beat buying wins individually, the same trick as any store membership deal designed to upsell. If I genuinely wanted to buy in, I probably would have gone for the bundle too. But thinking it through further, this whole thing was still a ripoff. Forget spending points on replicas, even trading directly with the shadow itself, one survival point was worth 100,000. Which meant a 3-win streak at 3 points was effectively 300,000. An absurd sum, far beyond whatever the duel room's actual win streak reward paid out. Wildly overpriced. Not worth it at all. Before I could even voice that, though, he read my hesitation and launched right back into his pitch. You need to understand, a 3-win streak isn't just about the duel room reward itself. More importantly, it's the foundation for the 5-win and 10-win streaks. Without that foundation, you'll stay a forgettable, mediocre player. Never qualify for the War God ranking. There's a kind of momentum around a person, lose your footing once, hesitate once, and that single loss can define a lifetime of failure. But commit fully to securing this win today, and you might just be gambling your way toward absolute glory. His sales skills were genuinely unreal, had to be the top closer in his whole organization. The way he framed it actually got under my skin a little, conjuring images from every cultivation novel I'd ever read, the idea of an unbroken path, a protagonist who never loses even once across an entire lifetime, climbing straight to the peak without a single defeat along the way. I'd walked into this thinking a win streak barely mattered. By the time he finished talking, some part of me almost believed losing here would doom me to mediocrity forever. After a moment, I asked instead, what if my survival jade token doesn't have any points in it right now? He wasn't fazed. Not a problem at all. I can set you up with a use first, pay later deal, secure the win streak now, repay the points within a set window afterward. Though, since players in this game can die at literally any moment, the seller carries all the risk in a deal like that. I understood immediately and asked, how much extra does that cost? Roughly double the base price. Only double? A 3-win streak that would have cost 3 points outright now ran to 6 under this arrangement. Straight up loan sharking. And he wasn't finished. Because the death rate in this game runs so high, repayment on a use first, pay later deal is always due within 24 hours. Automatic collection happens at midnight, game time. If your Jade token doesn't have enough points at collection, you get a 24-hour grace period to make up the difference, with a penalty fee tacked on for the delay. And if, by the end of that grace period, you still can't cover it. His tone stayed casual, like he was discussing routine business. You get erased. Our organization collects 1 survival point as guaranteed compensation for your death. You already know killing a player earns 1 point, right? That was when the true horror of this whole system really landed on me. Every single human life in this place was, quite literally, a walking survival point. I'd previously assumed 1 point being worth 100,000 made killing not worth the trouble. But if a player owed points they couldn't repay, and their own death was about to collect on that debt, would they start killing others out of pure desperation? Would others do the same to them first? People would do far worse. That's just what happens when survival's on the line. People choose to live, even if it means someone else dies for it. He noticed the shift in my expression and chuckled. Yeah. Everything you're imagining right now is exactly right. The beginner apartment announcements talk about surviving to day 8, day 10, but in plenty of apartments, players never even make it that far. Most are already dead by day 5. You think veteran players show up just to slaughter whoever's left? By the time they arrive, most of the newcomers are already gone. Anyone who couldn't adapt fast enough has already become someone else's survival points. I'd been picturing some eventual war between newcomers and veterans. What he was describing suggested something far grimmer. By the time veterans actually arrived, there might be no newcomers left standing at all to fight them. A chill crawled up my spine. I couldn't stop myself from asking, so tell me, after the beginner test ends, how many newcomers actually make it out alive? He didn't answer that. He just pivoted smoothly back into his pitch. Honestly, what we charge for win streaks isn't even that steep. I know several strong newcomers already sitting on 10, 20 saved up survival points. And believe it or not, one player on the War God ranking has held over 100 points at once. My eyes went wide. Over 100? That meant, had that person killed over 100 people? But a beginner apartment only starts with 80 players total, I said. How does anyone rack up more than 100 points? They travel to other beginner apartments and harvest players there. Every apartment's rooftop has a teleportation gate leading to other beginner apartments. Pay 1 survival point and you can transfer over. That's exactly why some apartments never even survive long enough to see the veterans arrive. That landed hard. I understood immediately that had to be how Huang Qi and Su Shangming had ended up in our apartment. And going by everything he'd just told me, those two were almost certainly bad news. My heart pounded. But he stayed just as relaxed as ever. Well, I think I've shared plenty of free information with you already. So, brother, how about the 10-win streak package? Most average players wouldn't even qualify for a use first, pay later 10-win deal, but I've got high hopes for you. Willing to use one of my premium sales slots on this. So, you won't let me down on this 10-win streak, will you? He said it like he genuinely believed I was some kind of chosen one, destined to hit 10 wins without fail. Pure sales tactic. Obviously, he was probably feeding this exact line to every customer he'd ever talked to. Even his earlier compliments about my skill and mentality were probably part of the same script. I didn't answer right away. I let myself look like I was seriously weighing it. Meanwhile, back in apartment 2025, Replica 1 had already returned with the bronze tier skill scroll in hand. With only a few minutes left on the Lucky Lanterns effect, I didn't waste time, I tore it open right away. My replicas all came bundled with skills tied to their individual abilities. My main body, carrying the X-tier infinite replication itself, had no skill of its own at all. Could an X-tier ability even gain one through this? And what if I got unlucky and the scroll simply failed? That would be a real loss. I held my breath, more nervous than I expected. The moment the blank paper tore, it dissolved into white light and folded straight into my body. A wave of refreshing energy swept through me, like waking from days of deep sleep, every trace of fatigue wiped clean, my mind sharper than it had been all day. In that instant, my awareness seemed to stretch outward, brushing against something I couldn't quite place. Once the sensation faded, I checked my panel immediately. Ability, Infinite Replication, X. Skill, Replica Fusion, D. Select up to 3 replicas for targeted fusion. Fully merge the attributes, abilities, and skills of up to 2 replicas into a designated primary replica. Fusion lasts 3 minutes. According to the description, this wasn't permanent, just a 3-minute window. My mind raced immediately. If I designated Replica 2 as the primary replica and triggered Replica Fusion right now, could I overpower that black-robed salesman by sheer brute force in those 3 minutes? Whether there was any real hope in it or not, I had to try. I didn't hesitate. At the same moment, Replica 2 seemed to make up his mind, putting on an expression that mixed resolve with a touch of manufactured guilt, and turned to the black-robed player. Before I sat down at the duel machine, I noticed the outer screen automatically broadcasts a player's match. Doesn't that mean our little arrangement here could get spotted by anyone else in the apartment? He chuckled. No need to worry about that. The moment this duel officially started, I disabled the spectating function. No audience is going to stumble into this room, and it won't show up on any external screen either. That answered something that had been nagging at me. Xiao Likuan and Wang Chang had watched Yang Wenchao fight earlier, but had they actually seen his real 3-win streak at all? That match where he'd lost to a girl, was that his 4th win, freshly failed after buying his way through the first 3? Or his 5th? Had Yang Wenchao bought his streak too? While that thought was still forming, my main body, still in the apartment, caught the latest wave hitting the chat. 2 more names had dropped off the member list. Someone assumed it had to be one of Yang Wenchao's leveling team, someone else warning that trusting a killer like him had always been a mistake. But no, it wasn't his team at all. It was Lu Shun, 9th on the ranking board, and He Weiwei from Class 2. Someone puzzled over it. He Weiwei dying wasn't shocking, but how had a level 1 player like Lu Shun gone down too? Maybe a monster had gotten him while he was leveling alone, someone guessed. Maybe this proved teaming up really was the safer bet. Just as everyone settled on the assumption that Lu Shun had died to some monster, a new message dropped from Ke Jingfei, one of the 2 quiet names sitting on the leaderboard, someone who'd never once spoken in the group before. His first message carried real urgency. He warned that Lu Shun hadn't died to any monster, he'd been instantly killed by an unknown expert, very likely one of the 2 newly appeared players. And then, he warned, he himself was currently being hunted by that same person right now. The instant he sent it, the message vanished into thin air, the same as every death before it. And in that same breath, everyone realized his name had gone dark on both the leaderboard and the member list. Which meant this quiet, mysterious powerhouse, the one people had been secretly in awe of, had been killed the instant he tried to warn the rest of us. The chat went dead silent for a long stretch. A wave of pure dread spread through everyone, wordless. Meanwhile, in the arena, Replica 2 turned back to the black-robed player. "You mentioned some kind of contract item that locks in the deal?" Hearing that, he understood immediately, another sale secured. He really did live up to his reputation as the gold medal salesman of whatever organization he represented, the one branded on his mask. Privately, he sneered at me. His usual playbook, he thought, worked every time: act untouchably strong, then flatter the mark with a line or two about their solid mindset and decent strength. Newcomers who just scraped their way to a 3-win streak were, in his experience, almost always frogs in a well, wildly overestimating themselves without any real sense of how big the world actually was. Their inflated egos only sharpened their hunger for one more win, and more often than not, they'd take out a loan just to chase it. Right then, in his eyes, I was exactly that frog. While he prepared to walk me through the contract, quietly congratulating himself for reeling in another sucker, I checked my panel after activating Replica Fusion, and what I saw filled me with real confidence. Abilities: hard work pays off, S. Gold element affinity, C. Skills: absolute focus, A. Combat stance, A. Golden light technique, D. 3 of me existed at that moment. My main body didn't count as a replica, so it couldn't be pulled into the fusion. In the end, only Replica 1 and Replica 2 had merged. Their attributes stacked directly. Their abilities and skills stacked too. But combat power wasn't a simple sum. Replica 1 had sat at 5.5, Replica 2 at 54, logically, the total should have landed somewhere under 60. Instead, after fusion, it soared to 72. A textbook case of 1 plus 1 adding up to more than 2. I had to give the black-robed player credit, he was strong. Going by the matchmaking system alone, his combat power should have sat right around 54, matching Replica 2 exactly, give or take. And now mine was sitting nearly 20 points above his. Of course, an experienced veteran with the right gear could easily make up a 20-point gap on paper. I wasn't planning to play fair regardless. As he launched into his explanation of the contract process, I put on the look of someone genuinely convinced, ready to spend big on the win streak. Just as he was fully absorbed in his own pitch, a streak of golden light flashed across his vision. Almost simultaneously, a cold metallic edge sliced across his throat, and fresh blood sprayed out. He had real combat experience behind him. The instant he felt the strike land, he dodged backward at full speed, one hand clutching his throat, staring at me in disbelief. I was just as stunned as he was. I'd one-shot killed Ding Dang with a single golden light technique using Replica 1's weak stats. I'd slitly Rant's throat clean with Replica 2. And I just watched the same technique pierce straight through this man's forehead, watched the poison blade blood dagger open his throat wide. Blood was pouring out of him. And he could still move like that? I only had 3 minutes of fusion left. No room to hesitate. With absolute focus and combat stance both active, I launched another strike. By every rule of logic, with equal combat power, his stats should have sat below mine now. And yet his speed was clearly superior. It clicked for me then, his entire outfit had to be a matched set. Pointed black shoes with a sharp upward curve at the toe. A long black robe, finely woven. Sleek black gloves. And the black mask over his face. A full coordinated set like that almost certainly carried bonus effects beyond its individual pieces. Anyone who'd ever played a game with gear sets knew a complete set always outperformed loose pieces. That explained it, even with higher raw combat power, even after a double sneak attack from both the Golden Light technique and the Poison Blade Blood Dagger, he was still standing. Barely even wounded, from the look of it. As he retreated rapidly, he wiped a gloved hand across his throat, and the moment his fingers left the wound, the gash sealed shut instantly. The external damage healed. But the poison from my dagger was still working through his system, and the golden light had already punched through his forehead. He wasn't fine. His mind was foggy, his movements stiffer than before, he was nowhere near full strength. Even in retreat, his eyes stayed locked on me, fierce. His throat injury had clearly damaged his vocal cords, his voice came out hoarse and broken, like a scratched tape. Kid. Do you have any idea what this outfit represents? It's not just me. It's the entire organization standing behind it. Even if you win by sneak attack today, from now on, every single win streak you ever try to earn will be targeted. You'll never see another one again. I genuinely misjudged you. I thought you might have some real talent. Turns out you're the dumbest newbie I've ever run across. His tone was condescending, dripping with contempt, like I'd just made the single dumbest mistake of my life. Hearing it, I felt nothing but excitement instead. I'd initially been afraid he was simply too overpowered for me to touch, that this streak was already lost. But his rant told me the truth, he wasn't shrugging this off. He was already at his limit. I wasn't about to be intimidated by a bluff. If the enemy's weak, finish them. A sharp golden strike cut through the air again. At the same time, I swung the Poison Blade Blood Dagger, except it flew clean off on its own, gold light wrapping around it as it moved. That startled me too. I realized what had happened almost instantly, I could control the dagger remotely now, no hand required. Somewhere in the middle of this fight, under absolute focus's boost to comprehension, I'd apparently awakened a new skill on the spot. There was no time to check my panel and confirm it, but I didn't need confirmation to use it, I just used it, wielding the dagger through the air with total ease. He had no idea I'd just picked up a brand new skill mid-fight. But he was already visibly shaken regardless. Because from where he stood, my entire loadout was plain to see, a disguise mask, nothing more than a bald face, and the Poison Blade Blood Dagger, an item whose effects he already understood completely. No hidden gear, no secret artifact. By the matchmaking system's logic, my raw combat power should have sat around 55, maybe 60 at the absolute outside. Instead, I was clearly performing well above 70. None of it made sense to him. Was the matchmaking system bugged? Was I hiding some invisible piece of equipment? Was I one of those limit-breaking monsters that supposedly showed up once in a billion players? Normally, combat power and actual combat performance were two separate things. A player with 100 combat power would typically fight at something at or below that number. Someone who could reliably use 80% of their stated power already counted as strong. A player who could use their full 100% was a rare specialist, something people called extreme flow. But there was an even rarer phenomenon beyond that, a player whose displayed combat power was 100, but whose actual output in a real fight exceeded that number entirely. A logical impossibility. A limit-breaking monster. Extreme flow experts were already scarce. Limit-breaking monsters existed only in rumor. Even as a veteran himself, he'd only ever heard stories about them, never seen one. For the first time, real doubt crept into him. Could this reckless kid actually be one of those legendary anomalies? What else could explain a level 55 equivalent player, running nothing but garbage gear, on the verge of actually killing him? He was horrified. He wanted to keep talking, to figure out exactly what I was. I had no interest in conversation. My replica fusion had a hard 3-minute limit, and I needed this finish now. The poison blade blood dagger, spinning under my remote control, struck at his vitals over and over with relentless precision. His dodging was slowing, the poison was catching up with him. I pressed the advantage. Then his whole figure vanished. All that was left was an empty robe, pinned in midair by my dagger. My pupils shrank, every nerve snapping to full alert. But absolute focus kept my awareness razor-sharp, and in a split second I sensed movement behind me. The dagger, floating 2 meters ahead a moment earlier, spun through the air on its own, a cold flash of steel slashing past my back at brutal speed. A dark shape reappeared. Blood sprayed. I reacted on pure instinct. The dagger snapped back into my grip, and with one final thrust I drove it straight into his throat. The blade moved faster than thought. His pupils shuddered, then dulled. Within 3 heartbeats, his whole body dissolved apart. A string of notifications lit up my mind at once. You have won this duel. You have received 100 wager points. Congratulations! You have achieved a 3-win streak in random matchmaking. Please select your win streak reward. 3 cards materialized in front of me at the second notification. I was still catching my breath, a little dazed. It took a second to fully register. I'd actually beaten a veteran player. Then again, thinking it through, my combat power had sat 20 points above his, and I hadn't exactly fought fair. Winning made complete sense, given all that. I pushed down the excitement and focused on the 3 cards, each the size of a poker card, solid black, indistinguishable from one another. Purely random. I ran a quick mental toss-up and landed on the 3rd one. Once confirmed, the cards flipped one by one. Announcement card allows you to post one public duel announcement in your current duel zone. So that was what Jiang Ye had used earlier. Level up card, if your level is below 10, instantly gain 1 level. If level 10 or higher, this card is void. A straight level up. No wonder Yang Wenxiao had been the first to hit level 2, this had to be exactly how. And finally, the 3rd card, the one I'd actually picked. Privilege 1, during random matchmaking, you may select a specific opponent from the pool of players currently matched to your combat power range. Privilege 2, in that selected duel, the wager no longer defaults to the lower bet. At first I didn't fully register how useful this was, it almost read as the weaker option compared to the other 2. But turning it over, this card was potentially a goldmine. Privilege 1 alone wasn't much, matchmaking still balanced by combat power regardless. But paired with Privilege 2, it became a completely different beast. Normally, wager rules defaulted to the lower bet. If I bet 100 and my opponent bet 900, the match would only run for 100 either way. With Privilege 2, that rule broke entirely. I could bet 100, handpick an opponent who'd wagered 10,000, and if I won, I'd walk away with the full 10,000, while only ever risking my own 100. A high-risk, high-reward cheat code, essentially, bet small, win big, as long as I picked the right target and actually secured the win. While I sat with that realization, the privilege card settled into my hand automatically. The arena dissolved around me, and I found myself back in my original seat. My fusion timer expired at almost the exact same moment. I couldn't help but reflect on it. S-tier abilities really were something else. Replica fusion was only a D-tier skill, and it had still outperformed my own D-tier golden light technique by a wide margin. The raw combat power stacking alone was absurd, but the real strength of it was how it functioned as an outright cheat inside the duel room. Matchmaking balanced fights by combat power precisely to force players to rely on gear, skill, and tactics instead. But fusing after matchmaking had already locked in an opponent let me spike my own combat power mid-fight and simply crush whoever I'd been paired against. I used to enjoy the classic underdog story, the protagonist who challenges someone stronger and somehow claws out a win against the odds. Why would anyone actually want to fight uphill, though? Steamrolling the weak, dominating from a position of overwhelming advantage, that's where the real satisfaction was. Not just more enjoyable. Safer, too. From here on, even if I got matched against a genuinely tough opponent, I had a trump card in reserve. And whenever I sent a weaker replica out on some solo errand, I'd have a real backup plan waiting. I was thrilled with this D-tier ability, honestly more thrilled than I was with my A-tier absolute focus or combat stance. Replica fusion might genuinely be the strongest thing I had. Just as I was still savoring the win, a notification rang out in my mind. Player Xing Xiu has posted a duel room announcement. Clearly someone burning an announcement card. I didn't think much of it at first, until the voice that followed turned out to be the black-robed players. Bald Kid at seat A06-5525, enjoying your 3-win streak rewards, are you? Consider this a reminder. What I told you in that arena wasn't a scare tactic. You will pay for your stupidity. My reach goes far beyond anything you can imagine. His voice carried the same arrogance and contempt as before. Across the duel room, chatter broke out immediately. Someone laughed that this Xing Xiu guy had actually burned a rare announcement card just to call out some random bald kid. Someone mocked the "my influence is beyond your imagination" line as delusional villain talk. Someone else guessed he'd just gotten his ass handed to him and was throwing a tantrum about it, and a wave of mockery followed. Then a second announcement rang through the whole room. Emergency duel room announcement: VIP player duo is currently linking 1 million duel machines to this duel zone. Full integration will complete within 10 minutes. At that point, 1 million veteran players will gain access to this zone. The whole room went slack-jawed. A few people just stood there blinking, not processing it. The sharper ones caught it fast. Did that mean this entire duel zone was about to get flooded with 1 million veteran players? Did that mean random matchmaking and challenge mode alike would suddenly carry a much higher chance of pairing against seasoned killers? Someone panicked that they already struggled against people at their own level. Throwing veterans into the mix would be a death sentence for their win rate. Someone demanded to know who this duo even was, what a VIP player actually meant, how anyone could just force 1 million veterans into a shared space like that. Then the pieces started connecting. Wasn't that Xing Xiu guy just talking about making some bald kid pay? Was this million-player flood actually because of him? Was he not some pathetic loser after all, but genuinely that powerful? The mood flipped instantly. This wasn't about punishing one nobody anymore. This was an entire duel zone getting wrecked because of him. Fury turned squarely onto the bald kid. Who was this idiot who'd managed to piss off someone this important? Within moments, the mockery aimed at Xing Xiu curdled into pure resentment aimed at me instead. Everyone in the room felt like their whole duel zone was being ruined over one person's mistake. I'd already quietly changed seats the second his announcement dropped. As I relocated, something clicked for me. Spectators could search a seat number to watch a specific player's matches live. In random matchmaking, players only ever saw their opponent's seat number, never their real identity. That was exactly why Jiang Ye had used her own announcement card earlier, telling her fans to search room 151 to watch her fight. At the time, I hadn't thought much of it. Now something felt off. Every seat number on the second floor followed the same XXXXXX format. So why was hers just a bare 151? Maybe that was tied to her stubborn bronze ranking and third-floor access. That was one possibility. But another thought occurred to me. Could there be private seats hidden from ordinary players entirely? If the public duel room worked like an internet cafe, first come first served on shared machines, did some players have the equivalent of a personal computer, a private duel machine belonging to them alone? I turned out to be exactly right. In apartment 985, room 2008, Jiang Ye was sitting inside her own private space, using her own personal duel machine, one she'd never actually been issued, but had stolen straight out of a package delivery. By running her matches through a private machine, she'd secured a permanent seat number in the shared virtual duel zone. In the public room, seats were first come, first served, leave, and someone else could take it. A private machine gave her a fixed number instead, functioning like a permanent streaming channel. Even offline, nobody could claim her seat. That was the real reason behind her earlier public announcement. On the surface, it looked like she just wanted an audience for one match. Her actual goal had been to turn her seat number into something as recognizable as a streamer's channel ID, so that every time she dueled afterward, an audience would already be waiting, automatically, the way followers show up for a livestream. Once her seat number built a real following, her per-match earnings would climb sharply, potentially rivaling what any celebrity streamer pulled in. A single win, under that model, could be worth serious money. 6 figures a day wasn't out of reach, at least in theory. This million-player announcement had just torched that entire plan. Her whole model depended on actually winning her matches, and with 1 million veteran players about to flood in, each one carrying their own competing channel, her win rate was about to collapse. Realizing that, her hatred for whichever bald idiot had provoked this VIP into retaliating climbed to new heights. After calming down, though, she settled on a plan of her own: squeeze out as much money as possible before the veterans fully arrived. Meanwhile, in my new seat, I could feel the hostility radiating off the people around me. Nobody could actually confirm I was the troublemaking bald man in question. The disguise mask always generated the same bald look, so I could just as easily be any random player wearing one. But the suspicion lingered anyway. I stayed outwardly calm, though internally I was genuinely confused. From what I'd seen, Xing Xiu's own combat power had sat around 55. How did someone at that level have enough pull to summon a VIP capable of dumping 1 million veterans into a single duel zone? Was my sneak attack really worth an escalation this extreme? Was there something else behind all this? Thinking back, right as I'd landed the finishing blow, he'd looked like he was trying to say something more, something I hadn't given him the chance to finish. What had he been about to say? I had no way to know, and no point dwelling on it. What actually mattered now was a more immediate decision: should I use my new privilege card before the veterans arrived, or hold off and wait until after they'd flooded in? Sitting in my new seat, I noticed the chatter around me had shifted noticeably. Someone reasoned that 1 million linked duel machines only meant 1 million veterans could log in, not that they all would at once. Someone else pointed to their own apartment's duel room as an example: 20 machines available, and they were the only one currently using one. Maybe this whole thing wouldn't hit our zone as hard as everyone feared. Someone else guessed that this VIP player, Duo, and the man who'd posted the first announcement, Xing Xiu, had to be working together, and their real target was obviously that bald man who'd provoked them in the first place. If veteran players did start flooding in, they'd probably be focused on hunting him down specifically. Mostly self-reassurance. But I took it seriously anyway. So far I only knew of 3 win streak rewards: the announcement card, the level up card, and the privilege card. Who knew what else that organization had in its arsenal? A group wealthy enough to link 1 million duel machines on a whim was less like a rival and more like a megacorporation, a true giant. Something like that, deciding to come after someone with zero backing like me. There were probably countless ways they could make my life miserable. I'd originally planned to hold my privilege card until the veterans actually arrived, hoping the bigger pool of opponents might mean bigger payouts. But once they showed up, logging out of the duel room entirely to lay low for a while seemed like the smarter move, which meant my income would take a real hit in the meantime. So the smarter play was clear: burn through the privilege card now, before the flood, and squeeze as much value out of it as I could in one go. With that decided, I opened the spectating function on my control panel. The interface looked a lot like a food delivery app: a search bar up top for looking up a specific seat number, and the rest of the screen tiled with active duel arenas, each showing a small spectator count in the corner. Default sorting displayed them more or less randomly, though high-traffic arenas seemed to bubble toward the top. Whether that was organic or the result of some kind of paid visibility boost, I couldn't tell. Besides default, you could also sort by spectator count, combat power, or title ranking. Since I wanted to squeeze real value out of the privilege card, and had no way to know in advance how much any given opponent might be wagering, spectator fees seemed like the more reliable payout. If my match drew a big enough crowd, the viewing fees alone could add up to a serious sum. I sorted by spectator count and settled in to study the options. Meanwhile, Replica 1, fresh off using Replica Fusion, wasted no time leaving apartment 2025 and heading straight back to 2064. The woman in white had only given me 10 minutes, after all, and I needed to get back to that cleaning job. The hallway between 2025 and 2064 wasn't far, and I'd already walked it twice by then, but I still kept my guard up, gripping the kitchen knife tight. The new skill I picked up mid-fight against the black-robed player had only shown up on Replica 1's panel once the fusion ended. Golden Cicada Shedding, D. Hold a metal weapon for 1 minute, then control it remotely for 3 minutes. Range, 5 meters. A fairly basic D-rank skill on its own, its real value would come down to whatever weapon I was actually controlling with it. It reinforced something I was already starting to understand. A skill's true strength depended heavily on the ability behind it. If I picked up more skill scrolls going forward, the smart move would be feeding them to whichever replica already carried the highest ranked ability, far more cost-effective that way. Turning that over, I stayed alert as I moved. As Replica 1 passed Apartment 2060, I felt it, killing intent, sudden and sharp. My whole body tensed instantly, palm slick with sweat around the knife handle. I pressed my back against the wall on instinct, scanning the corridor. A cocky male voice cut through the shadows to my right. "You're Jiang Ye, from the 20th floor, right?" A lean young man stepped out of the dark, buzzed hair, a tattoo on his forehead that seemed to be covering some kind of scar. Everything about him screamed street thug, nothing like a fellow apartment resident. This had to be one of the 2 level 3 outsiders, Huang Qi, or Su Shangming. According to the ranking board, both Lu Shan and Ku Zhengfei had died at the hands of these two, killed instantly. What actually tightened my nerves further was what came next. As he approached, he gave me a cold once-over, brows knitting in confusion. "Does your beginner apartment have 2 people named Jiang Ye? Is the Jiang Ye on the ranking board, the level 1-1, a different guy?" My heart skipped. I put on a nervous, uneasy expression and said nothing. He kept closing the distance, working through it out loud. "You've got some ability that blocks people from inspecting your panel?" "No, even blocked, it wouldn't show a result like this." "Could it be something that disguises the panel itself? Does a power like that even exist?" Unable to figure it out, he hardened his tone. "All right, buddy, explain yourself. Why does your panel show level 0, when the ranking board lists a Jiang Ye at level 1? That's when it clicked, he had some kind of ability to inspect other players' panels directly. Thankfully, the only one he'd inspected was Replica 1's. If he'd seen my actual body's panel instead, and exterior ability on full display, that would have been an entirely different kind of disaster. I made a mental note right then, from here on, my real body needed to stay completely out of sight. No more wandering. Replicas would handle everything from now on. This wasn't the worst-case scenario yet, but my secret was still sitting closer to exposure than I liked. I had no clean explanation for why I showed level 0 on my panel but level 1 on the board. And honestly, why should I explain anything to this guy? He wasn't my classmate. He'd killed my classmates. I stayed pressed against the wall, playing the part of a terrified level 0 player on the outside. Internally, I was already running the numbers on whether I should fuse with Replica 2 and try to one-shot this tattooed stranger before he could do anything worse. He could already see my panel, after all, and if he noticed it change mid-fusion and leaked that into the chat, that would be its own disaster. But did I actually have the strength to kill him in a single hit? He'd crossed apartments on his own, that alone suggested real strength. And he probably had a partner somewhere nearby. Were they working separately, or was the other one lurking just out of sight, waiting for an opening? I wasn't confident enough to commit. While I wavered between striking first and waiting it out, he spoke again, relaxed. "Relax, man. If I actually wanted you dead, you wouldn't even have had time to react." Damn. The confidence on this guy. He twirled a small knife idly between his fingers as he kept talking. "Name's Huang Qi. Me and that other guy, Su Shangming, were not from the same apartment. So why work together? Simple. Same goal. Getting as strong as possible, as fast as possible." He glanced at me. "So, what do you think's the fastest way to get stronger?" I had no idea where he was steering this, but I played along and gave him 2 flat words: killing people. "Bingo," he said, delighted, snapping his fingers with an odd little flourish. Then he corrected himself. More precisely, killing, at scale. Mass slaughter. Or, in our case, I guess you'd call it apartment slaughter. He grinned, wide and sinister, the tattoo on his forehead twisting with the expression until he looked almost demonic. His next words came out just as cold. In my own apartment, besides me, there's nobody left alive. Su Xiangming's apartment was the second. And now, yours is the third. He looked me over. Jiang Ye, is it? You're a lucky one. You're not particularly strong, but you started on the 20th floor. That's the only reason you're still breathing. You've got two options. Become my dog, same as Su Xiangming did. I lead, we go apartment by apartment, harvesting survival points, way faster growth than grinding duels or running errand jobs ever could. I'm building an organization. Anyone who joins now becomes a founding member. But I don't carry freeloaders, you want in, you pay the entry price. Right now, my rule's simple, after each apartment gets cleared, my people hand over 10 survival points to me. Kill enough to clear your quota with extra left over, and you keep the rest for yourself. Once I've got at least 8 followers, I'll formalize things properly. He arched an eyebrow, still casual. Oh, you've got a survival jade token, right? My mind was spinning. I'd assumed the 2 newcomers were just a pair of unusually strong level 3 players who'd figured out apartment hopping. I hadn't expected this, they'd already wiped out 2 entire apartments worth of people. A wave of pure relief hit me. Thank God I hadn't acted rashly a moment ago. If I had, with however many survival points this guy had farmed off hundreds of murders, his real strength was probably somewhere I couldn't touch. Forget one-shotting him. I might not even be able to beat him at all. That realization tightened every nerve in my body. I answered stiffly. I do have a survival jade token. He grinned. Then this'll be easy. 2 hours, tops, and this apartment's done. Then we move on to the next one. Utterly ruthless. Utterly arrogant. He didn't see human lives as anything at all. At that point I gave up entirely on the idea of striking first, and kept up the nervous act instead, stammering, I was actually just heading to apartment 2064, to do some cleaning work. Before I could even finish, he cut me off. You serious right now? Bro, is this some kind of joke? Killing one person is worth 100,000 instantly, and you're telling me about a cleaning job? He toyed with his knife again, voice cold. Let me ask you straight. You gonna keep doing your little cleaning job, or are you coming with me to kill? My heart was pounding. Without hesitating, I answered with 2 words, loud and firm, like I'd already made up my mind to become exactly what he was, a cold-blooded monster who killed without blinking. He looked pleased. Now that's what I like to hear. All right, answer a few more questions for me. First, that Yang Wenchao guy, also on the 20th floor, how strong is he, really? Second, this so-called mysterious bald guy everyone keeps mentioning, also 20th floor presumably, what do you know about his strength? Third, and I still want an answer on this one, why does your panel show level 0 while the ranking board says level 1? Just from the first 2 questions, I understood exactly what he was doing, sizing up whether to recruit Yang Wenchao and the bald man into his little organization, or, if they turned out too strong to control, mark them as his next targets. I didn't push back or ask anything in return. I just answered, one by one. Yang Wenchao's very strong. I paused, then added, deliberate. During a fight against a monster, he seemed to actually come back from the dead. Afterward, in the chat, he claimed it was survival points that revived him. Personally, I find that explanation pretty questionable. Boss, do you know if survival points can actually be used for resurrection? His expression sharpened. Resurrection? Survival points don't have any resurrection function. Which means whatever brought him back has to be tied to his own talent. He considered it. Can you guess his ability's rank? I thought it over, careful. Our apartment's got an S-tier ability holder, Wang Lingling. And Yang Wenchao seems to be even stronger than she is. Whether his talent actually outranks S-tier, I couldn't say for sure. Wang Lingling doesn't live on the 20th floor, and he does, that alone probably gives him a real edge. As if just remembering something, I added, "Boss, since you can see my panel, can you check his too?" He shot me an irritated look. I can only inspect players 3 levels below me. He's already level 3. Can't touch his panel. So that was the mechanic. My own low level was the only reason he'd been able to see mine in the first place. And I suspected something else too. Beyond simply being unable to check Yang Wenchao's data, he probably had no real interest in confronting him directly. Too worried he might be underestimating a real threat and get himself killed over it. More cautious than he let on. I was about to answer his second question when I saw his expression shift dramatically. Mine did too, because right then, the chat exploded. Someone had noticed Su Xiangming's name vanish from the ranking board, his entry in the member list gone dark along with it. Panic followed instantly. Who killed him? Lucian answered, Yang Wenchao. Disbelief poured in. He'd taken down a cross-apartment powerhouse despite the level gap? Someone pointed out he'd just hit level 3 himself. Even so, someone else marveled, taking down someone who'd already wiped an entire apartment was still insane, even in a fair fight. Someone declared that anyone with intentions as bad as those 2 outsiders deserved exactly what they got, and that Yang Wenchao had just done the whole apartment a favor. Wang Chang chimed in, reminding everyone he'd said all along that the apartment needed someone like Yang Wenchao, and asked, pointedly, what people had even been thinking when they'd called for his head earlier. Xiao Likuan wondered aloud when he'd get around to Huang Qi too, worried the 2 outsiders had come here purely to slaughter everyone. Someone agreed enthusiastically, begging him to hurry, admitting they were too scared to keep running deliveries otherwise. The praise piled up fast. Yang Wenchao was unstoppable, a hero. The entire chat had turned into a wall of adoration for him. Taking down Su Xiangming had transformed him into the apartment's hero overnight. Meanwhile, the classmates who'd once branded him a murderer had gone completely silent, whether out of genuine reconsideration or simple fear of his strength, there was no way to know. And everyone singing his praises now was clearly hoping he'd turn around and finish off Huang Qi next. Huang Qi read all of it, and his face darkened. His eyes narrowed, a flicker of cold, murderous intent surfacing behind them. Pathetic little insects, cheering like that. How annoying. I much prefer watching worthless scum like this beg at the end. His gaze turned back to me, icy. I pressed my lips together and kept my expression firm. I want to get strong too. Oof. If you want power, you have to be ruthless. He studied me for a moment, then asked, meaningful, what's your actual relationship with Yang Wenchao? I thought it over and answered without much hesitation. Before all this, I barely knew any of my classmates. But there was one time I spoke up for him. When we ended up here, he actually had a clean shot to kill me once, and let me go instead. Said we were even after that. Ha! Is that so? He seemed a little surprised, eyes shifting thoughtfully. So the 2 of you aren't close? And you're not close with anyone else in the group either? I nodded, sensing he was building towards something. Sure enough, once I confirmed it, his eyes narrowed again, something dark flickering through them. Then, as if nothing had happened, he slid back into his relaxed demeanor. All right then. Finish answering my third question. I nodded and answered in one go. I don't know much about the mysterious bald man, but since he's able to use the dual room, his apartment probably sits on the 20th floor too. Most people assume he's the one showing up on the ranking board as Zhang Jintian. I paused, meeting his eyes directly for the first time, no trace of nervous timidity in it now, just calm. As for why my panel shows level 0 while the board lists me at level 1, simple. I've been holding back. My tone stayed level, deliberate. He squinted at me, then let out a low chuckle. Hiding your strength? Not bad. All right then, show me what you're actually working with. I let a beat of silence pass before voluntarily pulling up my panel. Abilities, hard work pays off, S. Gold element affinity, C. Skills, absolute focus, A. Combat stance, A. Golden light technique, D. Golden cicada shedding, D. I triggered Replica Fusion again, though this time, with no intention of actually striking him. His eyes widened visibly at the sight of my panel, curiosity sharpening into something more interested. Dual abilities. No wonder you were hiding it. He gave a low whistle. Not bad at playing the weakling, kid. I didn't respond to that. Instead, I flipped the exchange around, taking the initiative myself. I'm fully on board with your plan to clear apartments one by one. But if you're expecting 10 survival points from me per apartment, you're going to need to show me something worth that price first. Nothing left of the nervous wreck I'd been playing a minute earlier. I carried myself like someone with real strength behind him. The shift got another chuckle out of him. Heh, showing your real strength's given you some backbone, has it? But let's be clear about one thing. As he spoke, he pulled up his own panel, though for whatever reason, he only revealed 3 of his stats. At the same time, he flicked his hand, and a 2-meter-tall bronze full-length mirror materialized in front of him. He glanced at me. Combat power 75, at level 1, not bad. But my base combat power, with 0 equipment involved, already sits above yours. You really think your gear stacks up against someone who's already wiped out 2 full apartments? I played along instantly, no hesitation. No problem. 10 survival points per apartment. That answer seemed to please him. He gestured casually. Come here. Stand in front of the mirror and show your panel. I hesitated, frowning slightly. He rolled his eyes. Already told you, if I wanted you dead, I wouldn't need a trick for it. I thought it over, then stepped forward and stood in front of the mirror, displaying my panel as asked. Hold it for 30 seconds, he added. I stayed silent and did as told. But after those 30 seconds passed, I felt something shift. My reflection in the mirror had started moving on its own. It stepped clean out of the glass. The panel it displayed matched mine exactly. What kind of item was this? Insane. Had it just created an exact copy of me? His voice, slow and smug, cut through my shock. Now, you can head back to your cleaning job. Testing Yang Wenchao's strength, that job goes to this mirror copy instead. Completely relaxed, clearly enjoying my visible shock. What he had no way of knowing was that my real shock wasn't just about the mirror producing a perfect copy. Back in apartment 2025, my actual body had just registered something far more insane. My D-rank skill, Replica Fusion, could apparently be used on this mirror copy Huang Qi had just conjured. Was this some kind of game-breaking exploit? If I fused this mirror copy directly into Replica 1 right now. Replica Fusion, naturally, came with a cooldown. But the way that cooldown worked was specific. If Replica A and Replica B fused into Replica C, only A and B actually entered cooldown. In other words, back when I only had Replica 1 and Replica 2, I could technically run 2 separate fusions in quick succession, 1 into 2, then 2 into 1. I'd already burned through both of those, and the skill had gone fully dark. And yet, the instant this mirror copy appeared, the skill, supposedly on cooldown, lit back up as available. It showed I could fuse with the mirror replica directly. What the hell? I was completely floored. Huang Qi just laughed. It's just a mirror replica. Why the shock? He stroked the antique-looking mirror, clearly pleased with himself. The high-end mall in the beginner apartment lets you trade game currency for items, sure. But those are all average stuff. Anything with enough currency can buy the same thing. This replica reflection mirror is different. I didn't buy it from the mall at all. When I traded survival points for currency with Shadow, he noticed my total had crossed 100 points and offered me a special privilege, access to trade survival points directly for items out of his own private inventory. This mirror's one of those. He said it with obvious pride. Not just anyone earned that kind of treatment from the Shadow. At this stage, the number of beginner players who actually own genuine survival point items could probably be counted on one hand. I found myself swallowing involuntarily, eyes already locked on that mirror like it was already mine. No, too obvious. I forced the reaction down, adjusted my expression into something more like reasonable admiration, and asked, feigning simple curiosity, "So this copy, made from my own image, does it obey me?" He froze for a second, then looked at me like I'd said something genuinely stupid. "Are you dreaming? This is an item I traded over 100 survival points for. Why would anything it creates listen to you? Even the Emperor himself couldn't order it around, it obeys me and only me. There is one drawback, though, it needs the target to stand in front of the mirror and hold their panel open for 30 seconds. So it can't be used to forcibly copy an unwilling opponent." He shrugged. "Works up to level 100, though. The stronger I get, the stronger whatever it copies becomes. Down the line, once my organization grows, if I find someone with strong base stats and no equipment worth mentioning, I can prioritize copying them into a real ally." He glanced my way, meaningful. "Your base stats are pretty decent, actually. And you're one of my first followers, don't worry, I'll make sure to invest in you properly." I nodded along eagerly and glanced at the mirror copy. "Does it have a time limit? Could it vanish mid-use?" "Not your concern. Survival point items are stronger than you'd think." He was visibly losing patience with me by then, waving a hand dismissively, clearly done wasting time on conversation. He turned and ordered the mirror copy directly, joined Yang Wenchao's team under the pretense of leveling together, then looked for an opening to launch a sneak attack and test his real strength. I understood immediately he wasn't just testing Yang Wenchao. He was cutting off my own escape route at the same time. Classic gangster movie logic: force the new recruit to kill first, burn their social standing, leave them nowhere else to go. If a copy of me started causing chaos among my own classmates, turning me into a hated villain in their eyes, I'd have no path back. I'd be forced to follow Huang Qi, killing my way through the rest of the apartment and wherever came after it. Put simply, he didn't actually trust me. He trusted the copy he'd made of me more. Just as he was finishing his instructions to it, the mirror copy vanished into thin air. Huang Qi froze, stunned, like he'd just seen a ghost. Meanwhile, having successfully exploited the glitch to complete a fresh replica fusion, I checked my new panel immediately. I wasn't sure whether fusing with an identical copy of myself would actually stack attributes, abilities, and skills, or if it would just look like a merge without changing anything real. If it turned out to be purely cosmetic, I couldn't afford to act rashly here. But when I checked, the result floored me completely. Abilities: hard work pays off, S, gold element affinity, B. Skills: absolute focus, S, combat stance, S, golden light technique, B, golden cicada shedding, C. My combat power had broken past 200. I'd gained 2 S tier skills outright. My golden light technique, originally D tier, had jumped straight to B. I was beyond thrilled. And right then, I made up my mind, even if the Emperor himself showed up today, that replica reflection mirror was going to belong to me, not Huang Qi. Driven by that overwhelming combat power and a burning need to have that mirror for myself, I didn't hesitate. I stacked every buff I had. Golden light technique. Golden cicada shedding. A streak of gold, faster and sharper than anything I'd thrown before, shot straight for Huang Qi's forehead. At the same instant, a plain kitchen knife sliced through the air toward him. I didn't stay idle either. Fists clenched, I closed the distance at full speed. Even the underdogs in every novel eventually take a swing at someone stronger. My combat power sat at 208 against his 88. If I couldn't win this, that would just be embarrassing. In his shocked, disbelieving eyes, the jade pendant around his neck flickered, and a faint green energy shield snapped into place in front of him. My kitchen knife hit it with a sharp clang, chipped, and clattered uselessly to the ground. He didn't get a moment of relief from that block. Right in front of his horrified eyes, the golden light punched straight through the shield and buried itself in his forehead. Pain exploded through his skull. It wasn't over. My bare fist shattered what remained of the shield in a single punch, and drove straight into his chest, speed and power both, total dominance. Blood ran from the corners of his mouth and his forehead. His eyes, wide with disbelief, cracked into pure despair. Because what the hell, Was this the strength of a mere 75 combat power? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Why was I this strong? Why had the copy he'd just created suddenly vanished? Even dying, he couldn't figure it out. With his grand ambitions unfinished and a heart full of resentment, he collapsed with a thud. Almost the instant he died, the chat exploded again. Someone spotted Huang Qi's name disappear from the ranking board too. Disbelief, we'd just been begging Yang Wenchao to take him out, and he'd actually done it? Someone else confirmed it enthusiastically. Who else could it be? A single flick of his hand, and even a cross-apartment powerhouse dropped instantly. Praise piled on thick. Yang Wenchao's a god, he's my god, I'm his dog from now on. Xiao Likuan admitted, genuinely impressed, that even a cross-apartment powerhouse hadn't stood a chance against him. Wang Chang echoed it. Lu Shan and Ke Jingfei hadn't even gotten to fight back against these outsiders, one-shot both times, and Yang Wenchao had just done the same thing right back. Someone declared him not just the strongest in our apartment but possibly one of the strongest across every beginner apartment out there. The whole chat was one long chorus of praise for him. Whatever lingering fear people had about him killing indiscriminately had gone completely silent in the face of that kind of raw power. Meanwhile, deep in the third-floor corridor, Wang Lingling's mutual aid group was having a much quieter conversation of their own. Someone pointed out the timing. Yang Wenchao had only just left the team, and now Huang Qi was already dead. That was fast. Too fast. Had he really done it himself? If not him, who else could possibly kill someone who'd instantly taken down Ke Jingfei? Surely no random nobody managed that. Lu Shan nodded, working through it. Judging by how fast he took Huang Qi down, my guess is he was holding back the whole time he was farming monsters with us. Wang Lingling agreed. His talent and comprehension might actually outpace mine. And he started on the 20th floor. Whatever privileges come with that let him grow faster than I can. Dao Chang frowned and suggested they focus on earning enough to rent a 20th floor unit themselves, as fast as possible. Then, lower, he admitted, honestly, I don't feel safe with him dominating our apartment like this. He's already killed 4 of our own classmates. If he doesn't stop, none of us can do anything about it. Lu Shan glanced around cautiously and lowered his own voice to agree. Brother Chang's right. He's strong, sure, but he's also a ticking time bomb. Sensing everyone shared the same worry, Wang Lingling followed up. Right now, the only real check on Yang Wenchao is this mutual aid group. Even fully united, we might not actually be a match for him. So here's my idea, we pool our resources and put all of it behind getting one of us onto the 20th floor. The moment she said it, Lu Shan, Gao Chang, and the group's other top members exchanged glances. They understood exactly what she meant, train up a real counterweight to Yang Wenchao. And by one of us, she obviously meant herself. Was she serious? Even though Gao Chang and Lu Shan were both part of the group, they had their own ambitions, and, especially as the men in the room, neither was particularly enthusiastic about deferring to her as leader. Sure enough, despite the obvious hint, none of them responded. Only Su Yuan, the other girl in the room, picked it up. I think it's a solid plan. The group could take out loans to cover everyone's rent, and put the surplus toward getting Sister Ling a 20th floor apartment first. She hesitated before adding, there's also Jiang Ye though, she trailed off, clearly not wanting to sound too cold about a classmate. Lu Shan caught where she was headed and redirected instead. Speaking of the 20th floor, there's also that mysterious bald guy. Wonder how strong he actually is. Maybe worth trying to recruit him into the group too. Watching Lu Shan and Gao Chang's reactions, Wang Lingling understood clearly enough that neither of them actually respected her as a leader. She let the topic of training up a dedicated fighter drop, quietly frustrated with her own lack of raw strength. If she'd had power like Yang Wenchao's, the whole group would fall in line without question, and neither of them would dare push back. In the end, it all came down to strength. While the mutual aid group schemed among themselves, Yang Wenchao stepped out of the red-lit elevator, staring at the chat in genuine confusion. He hadn't even found Huang Qi yet, and the guy was already dead? Who had actually done it? There was no way some random weakling had stumbled onto him and won. Were cross-apartment veterans really this fragile? He'd been counting on that kill to cash in himself, and someone had stolen it out from under him. Given the average skill level in this apartment, nobody but him should have been capable of it. Had Huangqi genuinely gotten himself killed by some random monster in a hallway? Were veterans actually this careless? He couldn't make sense of it, and a nagging unease settled in. As for the misunderstanding spreading through the chat, since he was already used to playing cold and distant, he didn't bother correcting anyone. Meanwhile, the real killer, me, was busy looting Huangqi's dropped items. A spatial watch, a jade pendant, a bracelet, a knife, and various other gear. I shoved everything, including the replica reflection mirror, straight into his own spatial watch and bolted back toward apartment 2025 like a thief in the night. With combat power over 200, my speed alone was absurd. It wasn't until I'd slammed the door of 2025 shut and locked it behind me that I finally let the excitement out. Killing Huangqi had been an enormous windfall. No wonder there's an old saying about how the fastest fortunes come from killing and looting the wealthy. The survival points and the replica reflection mirror alone were exactly the resources I needed most, never mind the rest of his gear. I summoned Little Bing immediately and had him run detection on everything, one piece at a time. Effect: generates an automatic shield when attacked. Physical defense plus 50, magic defense plus 50. Effect: can be thrown up to 10 meters and returns to the hand. Chance to stun on hit. Effect: energy plus 1. Effect: slightly boosts luck. Duration: 38 minutes. Rechargeable. Another luck boosting item, and better than the lucky lantern, since this one was reusable. I didn't even bother figuring out how to recharge it. I just put it on immediately. Then I sent the single survival point I'd earned off Huangqi's death straight to my main body, and used it right away to spawn a new replica. Congratulations! You have generated a new replica. But the instant this new one formed, my main body collapsed straight to the floor. A dull ache throbbed through my skull, every ounce of strength drained out of me at once. It registered immediately, my main body was simply too weak to support this. 3 replicas was already my hard limit. If I wanted more, I needed to raise my own core stats first. I had one of my replicas haul my exhausted main body onto the bed, then forced myself to check what the new replica had rolled. Another huge surprise waited. Ability: Ice Element Affinity, S. Skills: Frozen Domain, S. Frost Mist Invasion, A. Extreme Cold Blade, B. An S-tier talent with 3 starting skills right out of the gate. Frozen Domain, an S-tier area skill, on top of 2 excellent offensive skills. Frost Mist Invasion especially, an A-tier ability that bypassed defenses entirely and infiltrated through the lungs. Ice element in name, but it functioned almost like a biochemical weapon, next to impossible to guard against. Of my 3 replicas, this new one, Replica 3, was clearly the strongest. Replica 2 still had real potential of its own, just needed time to develop further. No time to sit and admire it, though. Replica 1 still had a cleaning job to get back to within 10 minutes, and Replica 2 needed to burn that privilege card before the veterans flooded the duel zone. I didn't even have time to sort through the rest of Huangqi's spatial watch. My attention went straight back to the replica reflection mirror instead. I wanted to test something. Could this thing keep being exploited? Since each individual replica could only fuse once within a given window, would a freshly made mirror copy always register as a brand new replica, letting me bypass the cooldown entirely, over and over? Could I fuse a mirror copy, then immediately use it to spawn another one? I tried. It didn't work. After some quick testing, I found the mirror's actual limit: only 1 mirror copy could exist at any given time. Even fusing that copy into another replica, the system still counted it as in use, blocking any new copy from being made. To reuse the mirror, I had to get rid of the existing copy first. And even through replica fusion, a mirror copy could only ever be fused once, no way to chain multiple fusions off a single one. But the cooldown on replica fusion itself could absolutely be bypassed this way. Because every freshly generated mirror copy counted as an entirely new replica, I could fuse it the instant it appeared, no waiting required. Which meant, functionally, I had an endless supply of cooldown-free fusion fodder available anytime I wanted to boost one of my existing replicas. The value of replica fusion had just skyrocketed. With the fusion finished, Replica 1, free again, headed back out to finish the cleaning job in 2064. Now that I had a real power base behind me, I found myself even more curious about what waited on the actual rooftop. I deleted the current mirror copy, then used Replica 3 in the mirror to generate a fresh one, ready to be fused all over again. Meanwhile, in the duel room, Replica 2 rushed to burn the privilege card before the veterans could arrive. You have a privilege card. Would you like to use it? Please select your opponent from the available matchups. A long list appeared, seat numbers only, nothing else, for every opponent who fit the matchmaking criteria. But I'd already spent time scouting big spenders through the spectating function earlier and had their seat numbers noted down. All I had to do was cross-reference the list. And there it was, Jiang Ye's seat, 151, sitting right there among the matchups. I checked it against my other notes and made the call instantly. Target seat number 151 selected. Privilege card successfully used. Match complete. The familiar arena space rebuilt itself around me. The spectator seats around it were already filling fast, and, to my surprise, sitting among them was Jiang Ye, the girl who'd tried to scam me earlier. The moment she spotted me, her eyes went wide with shock, and she fired off a frantic message to Li Ran. Sister Ran! Sister Ran! That bald guy we scammed earlier, he just got matched against Jiang Ye. Based on what everyone's estimating for Jiang Ye's combat power, that means this guy's sitting above 50. And he still had the nerve to scam two weak girls like us? What a shameless bastard. Mid-rant, she noticed Li Ran had also shown up among the spectators, sitting right beside her, no less. She yelped in surprise. Wait, what? Sister Ran, didn't you say you didn't want to waste time or money spectating fights? Why'd you come watch this one? She'd meant it as a genuine question, then caught herself and pieced it together on her own. You're here to watch Jiang Ye beat that shameless bald guy senseless, right? Payback, for us? She kept going, excited now. I heard from other spectators, when she made her announcement earlier, she'd already hit 5 straight wins. Then she just kept going, 6, 7, 8, right in front of everyone watching. This match is her 9th in a row. Against this guy? Easy win. And from what people are saying, she's got seriously luxury gear and insane combat instincts, basically unbeatable against anyone at her combat power range. Jiang Ye's tone was pure admiration and envy. She was completely convinced this was going to be a one-sided stomp, Jiang Ye's 9th straight win, practically guaranteed. Li Ran stayed quiet, though, studying the bald man in the arena with a thoughtful, unreadable expression. After a moment, she pursed her lips and dropped a thought that landed like a bombshell. What if he's the mysterious bald guy who got the VIPs to link 1,000,000 duel machines? The second she said it, Jiang Ye's eyes went round with shock. She spun toward Li Ran like she'd seen a ghost. Nearby spectators who'd overheard turned too, and before long the whole crowd was buzzing over it. Could this bald man really be the one who'd pulled in all those veterans? Someone dismissed it, he didn't look like he was carrying any real gear. Someone else agreed, if he could actually match up with Jiang Ye, his combat power was probably only around 50, while whoever pissed off those VIPs almost certainly had triple digits, maybe even war god ranking material. Someone half-joked they hoped this wasn't that guy, since losing her 9th win would be a genuine shame for her. Someone else reassured the group, no way, her luck was way too good for that kind of misfortune. While the crowd chattered, Jiang Ye herself locked eyes with the bald man across the arena and felt her heart skip, just for a second. She shook it off quickly, reassuring herself, no way her luck was that bad. Besides, whoever had angered the VIPs had to be sitting well above 100 combat power. There was no way the matchmaking would have paired them together. This should be easy. I had no idea what any of the spectators were actually thinking. I just looked around at the growing crowd and saw exactly what it was: money waiting to be collected. I also noticed something else. In every empty arena fight I'd played before, the match started immediately after a brief 3-second countdown. This one, whether because of the size of the audience or Jiang Ye's special seat status, came with a full 2-minute prep window instead, which worked out perfectly for me. 2 more minutes meant 2 more minutes of spectators pouring in. Back in beginner apartment 1008's duel room, Xiao Likuan and Wang Chang stared at duel machine number 2's screen, completely dumbfounded. Wang Chang stammered first. This woman. She looks exactly like Jiang Ye. Xiao Likuan snapped back, incredulous. Looks like? That is Jiang Ye. Wang Chang's envy flared instantly, eyes practically bloodshot. Who the hell is this bald guy? This lucky bastard actually landed a match against an actual celebrity? And I've never seen her in this outfit before: black vest, black tights, look at those, he whistled. She's the peak of temptation, man. Xiao Likuan nodded along, fully agreeing. Celebrity's a celebrity. Face, figure, that whole presence, exactly my type, honestly. He sighed. Even if that bald guy loses this fight, he's already won at life. Man, I wonder which apartment she's actually in. Whoever's stuck with her as a neighbor is unbelievably lucky. Wang Chang shook his head, resigned. She looks insanely strong, though. He's definitely losing this. While the two of them stewed in jealousy, all eyes glued to the screen, the 2-minute prep window finally closed. Jiang Ye's 9th win attempt officially began. The instant the countdown hit 0, she shot forward like an arrow off the string, dressed head to toe in black combat gear, leaving a trail of afterimages scattered across the arena. Those afterimages didn't fade either, they lingered, multiplying, until the whole battlefield looked flooded with copies of her. From the spectator seats, there was no way to tell which one was actually real. Li Ran, watching her fight for the first time, sat stunned. Su Jingyao filled in quickly. That's probably an ability tied to her gear set. The afterimages can't attack, but good luck ever finding the real one among them. She can swap places with them at will too, makes her practically impossible to pin down. She was just gearing up to list off more of Jiang Ye's abilities when a wave of freezing air swept across the entire arena. Every scattered copy of her froze in place at once. Not a single one remained standing. The whole audience went dead silent, most of them still not processing what had just happened. A familiar system notification cut through the quiet. Congratulations! The contestant from seat G79-1049 has won the match. Both fighters vanished from the arena. The spectator section sat in stunned, eerie silence for a long stretch before a chorus of shocked curses finally broke out, and then the whole crowd exploded into chatter at once. Jiang Ye, one shot? Not even because someone found her real body among the afterimages, every single copy had been wiped out simultaneously? How could an area of effect skill possibly hit that hard against someone at her level? Their combat power should have been roughly equal, this didn't add up at all. Someone reasoned that whatever froze her had to be a powerful item, not a mere skill, nothing at her tier should output that kind of damage. Someone else agreed, had to be something survival point exclusive. Someone lamented how unlucky she was, so close to 9 straight wins, gone just like that. And then, inevitably, did that confirm it? Was this bald man really the one who'd angered the VIPs? A furious voice declared full support for letting the incoming veterans wipe him off the map, in Jiang Ye's honor. Someone else agreed, he'd broken her 9-win streak, he deserved whatever was coming. While her furious fans worked themselves into a rage, ready to tear me apart in spirit if nothing else, Su Jingyao and Li Ran just sat there, stunned into silence, staring blankly at the now empty arena where the bald man had been standing a moment before. Then Su Jingyao swallowed hard, reaching over to poke Li Ran's arm with a trembling finger. I just had a thought, she said, hesitant. Maybe we weren't scammed. Maybe we were flirted with. Wasn't that just blatant teasing? A powerhouse strong enough to one-shot a 9-win streak, and his loan limit sat at a measly 500? No way. With strength like that, he could have robbed the duel room blind outright. Instead he'd played along with their little scam and only walked away with 400, and put on that honest, naive face the entire time while doing it. That was pure, deliberate mockery. Su Jingyao's cheeks flushed with frustration, though she couldn't help muttering, "This guy's genuinely ruthless, though." Now she has to start her 10-win streak from scratch. And once the veterans actually flood in, pulling off 10 in a row is going to be nearly impossible. This bald bastard's out here just making enemies for sport. Li Ran, snapped out of her thoughts by the poke, didn't respond to any of it. After a long silence, she muttered instead, "I'm really way too weak," and left the spectator seats on her own. Meanwhile, back in apartment 985, room 2008, Zhao Yudi returned to her private seat after the loss, her face pale with fury. That bald man had one-shot her outright. If it hadn't been that fast, she could have at least realized the fight was lost and tried to negotiate, offer up some coins, some survival points, work something out to salvage her streak. But she'd lost too quickly to even attempt it. The more she thought it over, the angrier she got. She'd bought the 10-win streak package. Now that she'd lost, not only did she have to start over completely, she'd lost the ability to even use the package she'd already paid for. Her whole plan had been finishing that streak before the veterans arrived. But the opponent she'd drawn for her 9th win had clearly hit harder than any ordinary veteran would have. She doubted even a veteran of matching combat power could have wiped her out that cleanly. If she'd known it would go like this, she might as well have just waited for the veteran flood in the first place. She ground her teeth, growing more bitter by the second. Then, in a blink, her figure vanished from private seat 151. A tall shape in a tight black outfit reappeared beside seat G79-1049 on the second floor, only to find it completely empty. No trace of the bald man anywhere. He'd already fled. She clenched her jaw even tighter. I, meanwhile, having already exited the virtual space, didn't spare a single thought for whatever came after the match. When I stepped out of duel machine number 2 back in the apartment, I found Xiao Likuan and Wang Chang frozen stiff, jolting backward several steps in fright the moment I appeared. Wang Chang, clearly too rattled to filter himself, blurted out, "Dude, you're insane," then froze in terror and backed up even further. I gave them both a casual glance and ignored them entirely, walking straight out of the duel room. Killing people earns survival points, sure. But killing was never that simple a word. This wasn't a game where death just meant a data reset, or a novel where the dead were paper-thin background characters. Here, it meant an actual human life blinking out of existence, permanently. Growing up in peacetime, I couldn't bring myself to kill randomly, especially not classmates I actually recognized. Maybe if I were in some other apartment, surrounded by total strangers, killing might come as easily as farming monsters in a game. I genuinely wasn't sure. Either way, my main body couldn't support any more replicas right now, so there was no urgent need to keep chasing survival points through killing anyway. Back in the duel room, Xiao Likuan and Wang Chang finally let out a long breath once I'd gone. Xiao Likuan muttered, still shaken, "Good thing that bald guy's actually one of our own classmates. If he'd wanted to come after us, we wouldn't have stood a chance." Wang Chang, patting his own chest to calm down, started fantasizing out loud. "If that turns out to be Luo Rue under there, that'd be perfect. Him and me are tight, I could ride his coattails the whole way." Xiao Likuan rolled his eyes. "Man, you really do dream big. First it's your parents secretly rich, now it's your best friends secretly overpowered. If he were really that close with you, would he be hiding his identity from you in the first place? My guess, that bald guy never had much of a relationship with either of us before. No beef, so he didn't bother killing us. Not close either, so he never bothered talking to us. From now on we should watch what we say in the chat. Say the wrong thing to the wrong powerhouse, and whatever thin classmate connection we've got probably won't save us." Wang Chang nodded quickly. "Noticed the same thing myself. Fewer and fewer people talking in the group these days, everyone's getting cautious. Guess people are starting to get scared." He hesitated. "About the bald guy one-shotting Zhao Yudi, maybe we shouldn't post that in the group either. Don't want to piss him off and end up on his list." Xiao Likuan had originally planned to warn the whole chat as a kind of public service, so nobody would accidentally cross me. In the end, he sided with Wang Chang instead. Anyone who did cross me was their own problem for not knowing better. Better to keep his head down and avoid offending any actual powerhouses himself. So my little stunt in the duel room never made it into the chat. By the time I went to repay my loan at the administrator's desk, the conversation in the group had drifted onto food. We'd all arrived at exactly midnight, game time, and it was already broad daylight by then. Plenty of classmates had burned through serious stamina running errands, and hungry and exhausted, a lot of them had turned to the low-end mall to solve the problem, only to discover that while entertainment there was cheap, food was absurdly overpriced. The chat filled with complaints. A bowl of plain porridge running 10 SP, a small veggie dish 20, meat 40, straight up robbery. Someone pointed out even a bottle of water cost 10. Someone did the math and realized a single normal meal, at their usual spending habits, would run over 1,000 SP. Someone raged that we worked ourselves half to death just to cover rent, and couldn't even afford to eat afterward. Were we here just to be slaves? Someone else admitted they hadn't even managed rent yet, let alone food. Someone lamented how they used to drop 1,000 on a single meal without blinking, and now they couldn't bring themselves to spend a fraction of that on survival. Someone floated an idea: hadn't Wang Lingling and Gao Chang gone off fighting monsters on the 3rd floor? Could monster meat be eaten? Lucian shut that down fast. Monsters disappeared the instant they died, no meat left behind at all. Someone begged him to think of another way, half joking that their parents would be heartbroken to see them starving like this. Lucian snapped back, not unkindly but firmly: enough with the mom and dad talk. Nobody here was going to coddle anyone, and honestly, our own parents, wherever they'd ended up, were probably suffering just as much. The chat went quiet and heavy after that. Until one girl broke the silence, Wang Rui, asking if anyone knew how the two cross-apartment players had managed to move between apartments, admitting she just wanted to find her family again. Nobody answered for a long stretch. She tried again, more directly, tagging Yang Wenchao himself. Someone immediately warned her off. Hadn't he already told everyone not to tag him? She apologized, clearly on the verge of tears through the screen. The dread in the chat thickened. Then, to everyone's shock, Yang Wenchao, who almost never spoke unprompted, actually responded. Where was she? He'd sent her to reunite with her parents. Stunned disbelief rippled through the group. Did he actually know how to cross apartments? Could he really deliver on that? He'd always carried that unstoppable, can-do-anything energy, so most people didn't question it too hard. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Wang Rui thanked him profusely, admitting they'd all misjudged him, and gave her location, the red-lit elevator on the 6th floor. He confirmed he was heading there. The sudden warmth from him felt unnatural to everyone watching. Soon, more girls started asking the same favor, and to everyone's surprise, he answered each one politely, asking their location and promising to help. Several were moved to tears, sharing their locations eagerly. A few of the guys grew jealous, assuming he was angling for some kind of romantic payoff out of all this generosity. The gratitude, the envy, the speculation, all of it curdled into horror before long. One by one, the girls who'd shared their locations started dropping off the member list. 2 in a row, then more. The ones who hadn't been reached yet scrambled to take it back, begging him not to kill them, pleading for Wang Lingling to save them, crying that they just wanted to go home, one girl even confessing a years-long crush on Lucian in a desperate bid for rescue. Bai Ruowan begged sister Ling and brother Chang to do something about him. The chat plunged back into that same dark, terrified atmosphere. I watched it unfold without getting involved. I was hungry myself by then, so after paying off my loan, I headed to the low-end mall and ordered 4 dishes and a soup. Meanwhile, Replica 1 followed the woman in white from apartment 2064 toward the rooftop, and Replica 3 stayed behind in 2025, sorting through everything looted off Huang Qi. I had zero interest in wading into my classmates' drama. Eventually, Wang Lingling stepped in to take control, telling anyone who'd given their location to Yang Wenchao to head straight for the 1st floor elevator, and asking the rest of the mutual aid group to gather there too. Since everyone had been busy all morning both learning about the apartment and dealing with food, she wanted to use the meal as an opportunity to regroup and plan next steps, and try to change their situation through unity and cooperation. Her message gave the terrified girls somewhere to focus, and none of them dared question her. Others who'd been struggling on their own, worn down by the food problem, hesitated but eventually headed down too. Then she tagged me directly, asking how much I'd earned so far and whether I'd found any survival stones working the 20th floor. I answered honestly enough, still on 20, still cleaning, no stones found yet. She hadn't expected much from me, but reminded me anyway that nobody else had found a stone either, which made her suspect they might only exist above the 20th floor, and that if I wanted to survive, trading one in for money might end up being my only real path, so keep an eye out while working, for my own sake. I thought it over and agreed to keep looking. Other classmates chimed in with their own analysis. We'd all assumed trading survival stones for money was wasteful, since they were meant to keep us alive. But with nearly 10 of us dead already, there were bound to be extras among the 80 originally distributed. Trading one early might not be such a bad call after all. Just as everyone's attention turned toward the stones, someone dropped a bombshell. They'd actually found one. The chat went dead silent. Even I found myself glancing over. Survival stones weren't just currency, they were the literal key to clearing the beginner apartment. It struck me, watching this unfold, how much my own thinking had shifted since arrival. When I'd first learned my rent ran past 120,000, my instinct had been to trade a stone away immediately. Everyone else had treated stones as sacred, untouchable, each one lost meaning one fewer person who could survive, never to be traded except in absolute emergency. Now, after grinding out real money through the duel room, my priorities had flipped. I wasn't thinking about trading a stone away anymore, I wanted to find one and hold on to it. Meanwhile, everyone else, watching how many classmates had already died, had started thinking the opposite. Surely there were leftover stones by now, so why not cash one in early and improve their quality of life? The moment came out, a girl named Yang Xiaoman, the chat exploded. Was it true? Where'd she found it? What did a stone even look like? People demanded she bring it to the first floor gathering. I had no memory of that name at all. Sure enough, a few Class 1 students asked the same question. Was she even from our school, or one of the outsiders like the earlier two? Class 2 students shut that down fast. She was definitely one of theirs, a recent transfer who'd only been around for a month, hadn't had time to get to know many people. A few others slowly recalled her, quiet, slow-moving, sat in the back row, easy to overlook. Someone started doubting again, she wasn't even registered with the mutual aid group. Maybe she just wanted attention. A few loudmouths openly questioned whether she'd actually found anything at all, possibly hoping to bait more details out of her. After that first message, though, Yang Xiaoman went quiet and didn't respond to any of the noise, which only deepened the suspicion. The debate didn't last, though. Wang Lingling stepped in, vouching for her personally, insisting she wasn't the type to lie for attention and that she genuinely believed her. With that backing, the doubters quieted down. She tagged Yang Xiaoman directly, gentle and patient, reassuring her nobody would force her to hand anything over, acknowledging she hadn't had time to build trust with anyone here, and offering herself specifically as someone worth trusting. Invite her into the mutual aid group, or just share some details about how the stone was found, or even leave a private message if a public one felt like too much. Wang Lingling really did have a gift for calming down scared classmates that none of the guys could match. Her warmth came through even in plain text. I was watching closely too, hoping Yang Xiaoman would share the details. Instead of that, she answered calmly and rationally. She hadn't originally planned to mention finding it at all, but with over 10 of the 80 of us already dead, she felt she needed to say something important. If we genuinely wanted to recover as many survival stones as possible, we needed to stop killing each other so casually. Because, as far as she understood it, every living player corresponded to exactly one survival stone, and once someone died, locating their specific stone became extremely difficult. Every death, in other words, meaningfully lowered our collective odds of ever finding all the stones we needed. With that, her message ended. The chat went quiet again. Anyone paying attention could see exactly who that message was aimed at. Nobody in our apartment had killed more people than Yang Wenchao, and he'd just finished killing several girls who'd only wanted to go home. But that same realization bred fresh doubt in some. Maybe she hadn't actually found a stone at all, maybe she'd just invented the claim to deliver a warning to him. I leaned toward believing her, personally. The wording gave her away. She'd referred to all of us as players rather than classmates, consistent with exactly what she'd said about not having formed real emotional ties yet. Her logic held up too. And if she were bluffing, she'd have had to gamble on Yang Wenchao, someone who'd already demonstrated knowledge and ability far beyond the rest of us, not already knowing the truth about how stones worked. Bluffing in front of someone that dangerous seemed like an enormous risk to take for nothing. So, most likely, she was telling the truth. Which meant, 1 stone per living player, easier to find while they lived, much harder once they died. That raised an obvious question: where would a stone actually be hidden? My first instinct was each player's original apartment. But all 80 of us had presumably torn our starting rooms apart looking, myself included, and nobody had turned one up. So maybe it wasn't tied to the room at all, maybe it was tied to identity somehow, or hidden behind some mechanism none of us had found yet. While I turned that over, the rest of the chat kept murmuring, doubt, speculation, repeated pleas for Yang Xiaoman to share more. No matter how patiently Wang Lingling tried to draw her out, she didn't post again. Classmates started trickling down to the first floor in small groups. By then, Replica 1 had already followed the woman in white to the rooftop, hauling a massive water tank containing all 10,086 strands of hair. By the time he returned to apartment 2064, the 10-minute limit had already passed. According to her, that meant a bad review, still better than an outright cancellation and penalty fee, and honestly the threat had felt more like intimidation than a real consequence. When Replica 1 got back, the mask was gone from her face, replaced by a loose white bathrobe. She'd clearly showered during that window. Even dry, the robe still gave off a faint impression of damp mist clinging to her. Her long black hair, once styled like something out of a horror film, was wrapped up in a towel now. She shot him a sharp, sideways glare for being late, but didn't push the point, just told him to grab the haircare toolbox and the water tank and follow her up to the rooftop. They didn't use the red-lit elevator. Instead, she used the same oversized TV screen she'd originally crawled out of, already perfectly repaired, no trace of the earlier damage. She pressed her palm to the screen and told him to press his cleaner badge against it too. I'll admit, I was nervous. I'd watched her crawl out of that exact screen like something out of a nightmare. Fortunately, this was only a C-tier replica taking the risk. I steadied myself and pressed the badge to the glass. A powerful suction pulled me through instantly. I found myself surrounded by a forest of bare, lifeless trees, white bedsheets hanging from every branch, some stained with unsettling red splotches. The whole place radiated a cold, ghostly dread, straight out of a horror film. And yet the woman in white strolled through it completely at ease, leading me between the trees until she picked out one unstained sheet, pressed her hand to it, and gestured for me to do the same with my badge. I'll say this for myself, I stayed composed even in that setting, deliberately memorizing exactly which tree and sheet she'd chosen before pressing my badge against it. The suction pulled again, and the scene shifted entirely. The gloom vanished in an instant, replaced by blinding, radiant sunlight that made me squint on reflex. Nowhere in this entire apartment, not the lobby, not the dim hallways, not the pitch-black elevator, had I seen actual sunlight before. I hadn't been here long, but that sudden warmth genuinely felt like being alive again. Even my main body, still lying limp on the bed back in 2025 from the strain of running 3 replicas, felt an unexpected wave of comfort ripple through it. If I hadn't been holding a massive tank of hair, I would have happily stretched out and basked in it. The woman in white, standing in that same sunlight, looked completely content for the first time. She adjusted the towel on her head and sighed, gazing upward. Sunlight this good is rare. My little Strands, you're in for a treat today. That nickname, Little Strands, gave me genuine chills. She pointed toward the edge of the space and instructed, out here, apply oil to all 10,086 of them, one by one, and lay them out in the sun. Once that's done, your job's finished. Squinting into the light, once my eyes adjusted, I took in what she'd called the rooftop properly. The space I stood in seemed to be an outer ring, a massive square corridor, elegant marble flooring, plenty of sun. At its center, ringed by that outer edge, sat an inner ring, floor pitch black, made of some unknown material, dotted with half-human-height black consoles. Some clearly had owners, random items scattered on top, strange objects laid out to dry. Others sat untouched, clean and unused. Was this what Huang Qi had meant about transferring apartments through the rooftop? I badly wanted to inspect one of the unused consoles. But she only seemed to want me operating within the outer marble ring. No real choice in the matter, I decided to finish the cleaning job first. While Replica 1 worked through the hair, strand by strand under the sun, Replica 3, back in apartment 2025, started poking at the living room TV, swapping itself out for a cheaper mirror copy first, since Replica 3 was too valuable to risk. I wanted to know if my own apartment's TV had any hidden function too, maybe a lead toward a survival stone. No matter how much the mirror copy pressed or prodded it, though, the screen gave no response at all. I thought about trying a work badge next, but the only one in the apartment belonged to my main body, and Replica 3 hadn't been issued one yet, and there was no way I was letting my paralyzed, exhausted main body handle anything risky right now. Meanwhile, Replica 2, finished eating, had headed toward the high-end mall, hoping to find some stat-boosting fruit to strengthen my main body. But just as he approached the entrance, a figure in a black tactical jacket stepped directly into his path. "Hold up, classmate." Black tactical jacket. That voice. I turned, and sure enough, Yang Wenchao, closing the distance from the mall entrance. Walking wasn't really the right word for it, he moved more like he was blinking from point to point, legs barely seeming to shift at all, a beam of light snapping between positions. In a handful of flickers, he was standing right in front of me. I clocked the black cloth shoes on his feet, vintage, almost ancient Chinese in style, a jarring clash against the modern tactical jacket. Probably some kind of bronze-tier footwear item. I filed that away while staying fully alert, ready to trigger Replica Fusion at a moment's notice if this turned hostile. But he didn't seem hostile this time. Calm, even. Heading to the high-end mall? Let's go together. I genuinely didn't want to go anywhere with him. Sure, with Replica Fusion active I'd probably outclass him in raw combat power. But that fusion had a hard time limit, best saved for an actual fight, not a casual stroll. And strength was never the whole equation anyway. How many stories had I read where the stronger side still lost, outmaneuvered by someone cleverer? What if he had something sneaky planned? Even setting aside any hostile intent, there was zero trust between us. Walking around a mall together would mean constantly watching my back the entire time. When I'd been weaker, I hadn't had the option to say no. Now, with real strength behind me, I was ready to flatly refuse. Then he leaned in half a step, lowering his voice, expression suddenly meaningful. "You're probably not actually a Doomsday Apartment game player, are you?" "Not a game player." I froze for a second. My first read was that he'd mistaken me for someone outside the 80 of us. But something about his expression told me that wasn't it at all. So what did he mean? Doomsday Apartment. Game player. Sure, everything we'd experienced here carried a game-like texture. The system had literally called us beginner players from the start, and people in the chat sometimes used logged out when someone died. But in casual conversation, nobody actually used the word game. Everyone said beginner player or veteran player, almost never game player. Paired with that loaded look on his face, a startling thought struck me. Before the whole world got pulled into this, had some people already played an actual game modeled on this exact Doomsday Apartment? That would explain everything about him, his knowledge, his absurd leveling speed. What about Yang Xiaoman, first to find a stone? Could she be one too? Maybe that explained why she'd called everyone players instead of classmates, because she'd already played a game called Doomsday Apartment, long before any of us ended up trapped inside a real one. I had no way to confirm the theory. When I looked back at him, he gave a cool, knowing smile, then repeated himself like nothing had happened. Heading to the high-end mall? Let's go together. He'd been waiting to see if I'd connect the dots. I thought it over and finally nodded. All right. We walked toward the high-end mall together. The low-end mall was a sprawling space open to any player. The high-end side had its own separate entrance, restricted to 20th floor residents and above, with a security gate that verified identity. As we passed through, it let out a plain beep and deducted 1,000 survival points as an entry fee, automatically. Elsewhere, classmates browsing the low-end mall spotted the two of us walking into the high-end side together, and the envy hit the chat almost instantly. Wasn't the entry fee itself 1,000 points? How could they possibly afford that? Someone did the math. 1,000 points could buy 10 meals at low-end prices. Someone one-upped it, claiming they could stretch that to 20. Someone lamented how casually the wealthy threw money around while the rest of us couldn't even afford dinner or rent. Someone else reminisced about spending 3,000 to 5,000 a meal before all this, and someone asked, bitterly, what they were surviving on now. The answer, a single bowl of plain congee, and even that had felt too expensive. Someone marveled at the whiplash of that budget collapse. Someone floated a theory, the dual room had to be the real moneymaker, since neither Yang Wenchao nor the bald man had taken a single job all morning and both looked flush with cash. Someone corrected that, hadn't Xiao Likuan and Wang Chang said Yang Wenchao lost everything in his last duel? So where was this new money coming from? Someone guessed monster farming on the third floor, only for someone else to shoot that down. Wang Lingling and Gao Chang had already confirmed monster fights only granted levels, no currency. Someone landed on the real answer, or thought they had. He must have looted the two cross-apartment killers after taking them down, and those two had probably been sitting on serious wealth from all the apartments they'd already cleared. Someone asked where those two had gotten their money in turn, and the answer came fast and cynical, same as always, from killing and robbing other people, same as how wealth tends to work in the real world too. Just as that conversation about inequality was winding down, Wang Chang piped up again. He genuinely suspected 20th floor residents had some other income stream entirely. He and Xiao Likuan had been watching the duel room for a while now, and it seemed like the people up there always had cash on hand. That wasn't normal, there had to be something else going on. That reignited everyone's curiosity. People demanded to know what the secret method was, half-joking they were losing their minds over money. Someone grumbled that they used to think starting on the 20th floor was a curse given the rent, but now, every powerhouse in the apartment seemed to be a 20th floor resident, so maybe that floor was actually the real unlock condition for the whole game. Someone agreed, speculating that only living on the 20th floor made you a real apartment player, unlocking some hidden gate the rest of us didn't even know existed. Someone remembered me specifically. Wasn't I a 20th floor resident too? Why wasn't I rich and overpowered like Yang Wenchao and the mystery bald man? Someone answered, half-mocking, because I'd gone off doing cleaning jobs instead. Someone else groaned at the waste of such a prime starting position. If they'd landed on the 20th floor themselves, they'd already be a powerhouse by now too. Someone agreed, same floor as the other two, and I was clearly falling behind. Someone else remembered the original system announcement. Hadn't it mentioned both canceling a lease and subletting? Could my 20th floor apartment be sublet to someone else instead? Someone picked up the thread. I'd already been planning to cancel anyway, and subletting would cost far less than the outright cancellation penalty. A number of classmates who'd once assumed I was doomed by my absurd rent were now reconsidering entirely, having just watched two 20th floor players thrive spectacularly. Living up there was starting to look less like a trap and more like the actual key to getting strong. So the suggestion started spreading, sublet my apartment to a real powerhouse. Since I'd been planning to cancel anyway, and the penalty for that ran far higher than subletting would, finding someone to take it over would effectively be saving me money. Even Wang Lingling seemed to be entertaining the idea, apparently planning to raise it with me directly once I rejoined the mutual aid group. Meanwhile, walking through the high-end mall with Yang Wenchao, I was fully aware of everything unfolding in the chat behind us. Staying alert around him didn't stop me from taking in the surroundings either. The high-end mall was noticeably smaller than the low-end side, but far more extravagant in its design. Glass display cases glittered with equipment and items of every kind, and an entire row was dedicated purely to treasure chests. Players could either buy items outright or gamble on a chest instead, a chance at something valuable for less money, with the real risk of walking away with garbage. Pure gambling, dressed up as retail. As I took it all in, I noticed Yang Wenchao heading straight for a display counter at the mall's north end. I thought it over and followed. When I got there, though, the counter held no items at all, just an operation console set into the right side. He walked straight up to it and began working the controls. I watched for a moment and pieced it together. This is the cross-apartment player trading platform? He nodded, still working the console, tone casual. Everything for sale in the mall proper runs overpriced, bad value. If you want to sell your own gear, players usually price it well below mall rates. Still second-hand, though, like any resale app. Nothing here's actually new. I didn't mind second-hand. Saving money was still saving money, and some of the gear I no longer needed could be turned into cash through this same system. Clearly a popular function among players, he was already listing off items he didn't want anymore. Watching him navigate it all with total confidence, I found myself circling back to the theory about him being a game player. Before I could figure out how to bring it up naturally, he beat me to it entirely. You're Yang Xiaoman, right? I blinked, thrown completely. He studied my reaction and said, guess not. Then, almost to himself, guess not that either. He kept going. So who are you, really? If you're running a disguise mask, wouldn't an invisibility item serve you better? You picked disguise over stealth. Why? Got some identity you're specifically trying to hide? At first I'd assumed he was testing me, gauging my reaction. Now it was starting to feel more like posturing on his part. I didn't mind being probed anymore, though. I had real power behind me now. I was about to flip the conversation and press him about the game player theory myself, but he cut ahead again. I heard from Xiao Likuan and Wang Chang, you used an ice-type area skill to one-shot Jiang Ye. He paused. With strength like that, why bother hiding your identity at all? His expression sharpened, turning more serious, his gaze on me suddenly complicated. Your 3-win streak. Don't tell me you actually earned those wins yourself? I was about to spin a lie about buying the streak outright, but before I could even finish constructing it, he cut straight through it. The win streak rewards look random on the surface, like you're just drawing one of 3 blind cards. That's not actually how it works. Normally, if you bought your streak, you only ever get trash, the low-tier junk, like the announcement card. But unless I'm wrong, your fight against Jiang Ye used a privilege card. And that particular reward only ever shows up when someone actually earns their streak themselves. A hidden mechanic like that? I had no idea. But something clicked for me. The level up card counts as high tier too, right? So, did you earn your streak the honest way too? That too was basically a confession on my part, and I knew it the second it left me. His expression sharpened further, his eyes turning more cautious as he studied me. Then he shook his head. Level up card counts as high tier, sure. But no, I bought mine. Hadn't he just told me buying a streak only ever got you trash? Before I could even ask, he explained on his own. It's like match fixing. Some fixed fights are obvious the second you look at them. Others are acted well enough to pass for real. I bought my streak, but I set a condition on the deal. The seller had to perform convincingly enough that it would actually look like I'd earned it. Basically, I used the performance itself to fool the reward system into believing I'd won it legitimately. That was actually possible? If it was true, then whoever ran these win streak sales operations had to know about that loophole too. They just weren't going to volunteer it to every random customer. Only someone already in the know, like him, could actually extract real value from a purchase like that. Which only sharpened the picture forming in my head. I followed up smoothly. Before you even entered the duel room, you'd already killed 4 players and earned 4 survival points. That happens to be exactly the cost of the 5-win streak bundle. You already knew how the duel room worked, knew you could buy streaks, even knew the pricing going in. I held his gaze. Because you're, what, one of these so-called game players?